boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another episode of Roundtable Live. Hi, I'm BaerTaffy, joined by Northern Lion, Rockley Smile, Mathis Games. The boys are back.
The boys are back in town.
Yes.
Hello.
The boy is back in town. The boy had left. The boy has returned now.
I am back. Temporarily.
We call the oldest member of the show the boy endearingly.
Am I the oldest?
No, I think I am.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
I think Nick is the oldest. Not by much, but he is.
Yeah.
And I prefer he keep that title.
Well, he's going to, so lucky you.
It's like you're wishing that he doesn't die, which is actually very nice in the whole scheme of things.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going with it. Exactly.
You had a nice trip, though. I hear the time away from the internet was a little
holy
refreshing
crap.
for
It was
you.
really nice. I will say though, like the day I get back, I'm very eager to like work again. But the minute I'm in front of my computer, it's like all those stresses hit me all at once again. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a little bit behind. I got to do this, that, and the other. All right. But once you catch up. It's really nice. Getting away from the internet and like Twitter for almost a week is really nice.
Just the screens in general, man. We live so much through the screens these days, but yeah, I'm glad to hear it. We're going to be talking a lot about the screens today, though. In fact, we're going to be talking about the screens you put right up as close to your face as you possibly can. That's the one that I like the most. Some more news about the HTC Vive Pro. We got a price announcement along with a price drop for the old version of the Vive. So another door has opened potentially for those of you interested in that. Riot, Blizzard, and Twitch are teaming up in a new alliance, the Fair Play Alliance, I should say, made up of over 30 different companies. We'll be talking about that, the implications there, trying to fight toxic gaming behavior. Also, Ubisoft, another quick bulletin from them. You may have been familiar. I think we mentioned this a couple times on the show. Vivendi was the big French corporation that was kind of trying to aggressively buy them out via stock acquisition, and we've got some news from there. We'll talk about what's happened with Ubisoft and Vivendi, along with a couple of games for this week. Kirby Star Allies, which came out last week on the Nintendo Switch. We're going to talk about that, along with Sea of Thieves, which is the new hotness this week, which has been getting some mixed responses.
The new hotness for 5 hours. Then you run out of things to do.
Mm-hmm. There was probably a better like sea-based pun in there somewhere, but it's early in the show.
Mixed response is also very optimistic.
So is 5 hours from what I've heard.
I would describe that as optimistic.
Okay.
I would, from the other people that I've heard talking about it, it is mixed in the sense that like there are some people that really like it.
No Man's Sky was the same way when it came out.
That's yeah. I think we're gonna get into that sort of comparison pretty quickly, and that's maybe reasonable too. But anyway, that'll be later on in the show. We're gonna start off with a little bit of news for this week. Some interesting stuff. Starting out with the HTC Vive Pro, which of course was announced about a month ago without a price. And now we do have indeed the official price tag from HTC themselves. It'll cost $799 USD and $11.99 in Australia. What is that conversion? Has that changed a lot lately? Or
No idea.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So $799 for the base headset. This is not with the boxes with the base stations or the controllers, by the way. This is the Vive Pro headset alone is $800.
Oh, okay.
And then the current Vive VR kit is dropping in price by $100. So that is now going to cost $499.
I assume all the lighthouses for the old Vive would work with the new headset.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why they're selling it for a base price. They want to convert people that already have the stuff. But it does get very expensive when you add the add-ons in.
But thank God they're not making you buy an entire new set of base stations and stuff. I mean, like that would just, you'd be throwing the early adopters out the window if that were the case. But at least they're giving us that. Yeah. No, it's about, I think it's actually the exact same price that the original Vive launched for a couple years ago.
Yeah, just with less stuff.
Right. But the
But
other
better features.
increased resolution. They got the built-in headphones, of course. This other stuff that we've gone over. The Vive Pro is better, and it's addressing most of the issues that, of course, I've been going on about over the course of like the last year or so about the Vive with the balance. They've readjusted that so your center of gravity is a little bit better, and then you've got, of course, just a more lightweight headset, which is an obvious thing that they needed to fix. So this is obviously the right direction, but it is still going to be very, very expensive. It's not.
The resolution is 3 times the normal resolution of the original Vive?
I don't think so. I think it's only like 1.5 times actually. They moved it up.
1.5 times.
I don't remember what it is right now, but they moved it up to 2880 by 1600. So
that's good though. I mean, the higher the resolution it gets, and the more comfortable the headset gets, the better for all VR enthusiasts. But I am surprised, to be honest, that we're seeing Stage 2 already with how, I don't want to say how poorly it's sold, but obviously how niche VR still is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was just looking at that myself. Like, it's crazy. I'm on Steam right now. Oh my God, there was a cat behind my monitor this whole time.
Which cat was it?
Shaking around a little bit.
It was Tomo. He was. You were back there the whole time. But I'm looking at like the top sellers on Steam in the virtual reality category right now.
Yeah.
And obviously, I don't have like sales figures, but you know, Skyrim VR came out. Oh no, this is a top seller. Doesn't come out yet. You fool! Don't meow at me, okay? I know I made a mistake. But like A Mage's Tale came out today, 1 user review. This seems crazy to me that like it's the top seller on Steam right now.
Yeah.
Like even stuff like Ark Park, which I assumed would be relatively popular considering it's based on an existing property, only has 71 reviews. Whereas, you know, a top seller in the non-virtual reality part of Steam has like, I don't know, like 1,000 reviews on day one or something like that.
To be fair, Gorn is actually fairly popular. It's got 1,600 reviews. Let me actually check to see what the numbers are on that one.
That's my like VR killer app right now. If I could get my
Yeah.
Oculus to work, I would be playing Gorn actually.
Yeah, but
Gorn is
PUBG has 589,000 reviews, so
There's a lot more.
Gorn has 84,000 owners on Steam, which, you know, like when you just talk about games in general, does not sound that impressive. But VR is still very small compared to like the entire gaming audience. So I think that's like a good chunk of the VR base is playing Gorn. So that's
didn't they gave it away for free, didn't they? In one like a humble bundle or something like that?
I didn't see
No, I don't think so. I bought it for $20 when it was on sale, or something less than that even.
I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
I don't think it was for free though.
The
thought it
broader
was in a
point
bundle
here,
or
though, is that there are fairly popular VR products. It's just that no one's really giving the new ones a chance, and it's pretty reasonable that they're not. To be honest, it's a really tough sell right now. Like think of something like The Mage's Tale, for example. Just looking at, I don't even know what this is, but I'm just pulling it up because it's the newest VR release at the moment. Mage's Tale is a virtual reality dungeon crawler that transports you to a fantasy world and turns you into a wizard. Just looking at all the screenshots and the trailer and stuff, like. This looks like it's probably good, but it's $40 and no one talking about it. No one has played it. No one's reviewing it. Like, how do you know if it's worth it? I mean, Steam obviously has the refund system now, so you can at least take that chance, but it's still like you just got to take a plunge at this point. You just got to go for it and see if maybe you luck out and find something really good.
I'm curious too, as somebody mentioned in chat, and it reminded me, like a lot of those games for me as a VR player are unplayable because moving while sitting down makes me motion sick almost instantaneously to the point where I can't play it. So like a ton of VR games that are sitting experiences where you're using the keyboard or controller to move, I just can never touch because it just is vomit inducing.
I don't even see those as like that's like the Fallout and the
Skyrim and a lot of other games use it as well. Yeah.
And like those aren't even I just sort of dismiss those because those I see are more of just cash grab attempts than really attempts at utilizing the VR space. Because while I've heard positive things about the way that those games play in VR, like it's actually a little bit more immersive to play Skyrim when you're actually shooting the bow and arrow and launching spells and stuff like that. Sure, that's fine, but it's kind of gimmicky still. It's not really like the killer VR app that we've been talking about for years that we've been waiting for. It's got to be something like Gorn or like maybe even The Mage's Tale is actually that game. Who knows? But like I said, like nobody's going to be playing it.
Yeah. Yeah, the games I think I had the most fun with, the most comfortable with, were the ones that gave me the ability to play within my own VR space. That's where I had a good time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So, fair enough.
But $800 is still definitely going to be a tough pill to swallow for
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I feel like it's tougher, actually.
Because, you're not getting everything with it.
Well, and even then, I mean, like psychologically, when Vive first came out, it had like so much hype behind it because it was considered like the consensus #1 VR product. And you're like, it's like the Family Guy thing where like, you know, you could take the boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It was even a boat. It could even be a boat. Mm-hmm. It's like back then you had a mystery box and you're like, oh my God, by the year 2018, who knows where VR is going to be at? And the answer is, well, like here we are. Yeah, and it doesn't seem to have really progressed that far. And there's no like amazing killer app that everybody's super excited about, and it's like this is the system seller for VR. Yeah. So you're kind of like, I don't know. I think it's going to be harder to get people to buy in now than it was then. My personal opinion.
It's I don't know. I guess like for me, as far as like where I wish VR was, I almost wish devs had a stronger idea as to what they wanted to do with VR games. VR games still feel like they're fucking everywhere, and like, and I mean, what I mean everywhere, like gameplay wise, they're all over the map. They don't have like, this is what VR is really good at, and this is what VR is really bad at. Everybody's still trying everything, so the variety of games is wide, and a lot of them are just bad still. And the really good stuff is the stuff that kind of came out early, and the stuff that implemented it really well. Like Elite Dangerous is still my go-to. Like, sit in a chair, here's a HOTAS setup for your, throttle in your joystick, here's a headset, you're gonna feel like you're in space.
Yeah,
and my pinnacle.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's my pinnacle VR experience for anybody. Is like, this is what I think VR should be: immerse you into the game world completely and almost seamlessly. But
do you guys leave your VR hooked up to your computer at all times?
No,
I do. Yeah,
I do not.
I've made like a special arrangement to be able to though. Like I've got power cables all sorted out in weird ways behind the computer. So.
Yeah, because it has the two problems of it. On one hand, if you leave it plugged in, it pops up all the time that you want to play everything in VR, which I don't always because we do streams. Yeah. And then if you unplug it, then you've got to take it out and unwind all the cables and set up the little things and calibrate it. And it actually takes like an hour.
Well, if you're taking out the base stations, yeah.
Yeah, because they all take up USB ports and stuff. So I want to, keep that tidy. I feel like there needs to be a way to consolidate that before we can kind of move on. Like it needs to just be an object you pick up and put on your head.
I'm doing this situation right now.
Oh yeah, all right.
On the wall mounted, so I'm not ever really dealing with the issue of having to like readjust the calibration and shit like that. But
the Oculus thing is really picky where you put them, and it keeps making you retwist them and move them until they're just right with like the lineup of the two things where they intersect. And I couldn't get it to recognize the right spot, and then it stopped reading my USB cables. And I was like, okay, this is going back in the box.
And these exact scenarios, this is just anecdotal, obviously, but like these are the scenarios that are still turning people off to it too. And I'll even admit, like I'm still probably more than 50% of the time, every time I try to boot something up, just dealing with a random issue or error or just some frustration preventing me from having a VR experience very quickly. And like, I even tried to boot up a game that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, Kinese, and I just wanted to play it for like 20 minutes again to talk about it or like to have it fresh in my mind, but it's not working. So I couldn't do that, unfortunately. So there's still just a few obstacles that are like, it's as someone who is still like trying very hard to hold on to the enthusiasm that I initially had for this, it's becoming more difficult to like try to encourage people to jump on board. I think like waiting is still the best idea right now, especially now that we know this is going to be $800 and you don't have the base, or if you don't have the base stations already, obviously still going to be a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried we might wait out the entire option of it being a thing after a while.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's still an enthusiast market like 2 or 3 years later.
Absolutely it is. Yeah.
And the software still sucks. Like I had an error. Not just the games, but like the software interface sucks.
Yeah.
It has errors that it said like Steam VR needs to be on, and the problem was Steam VR was on. So what do you do? I turned it off, and then it did the same error again. So I don't know. That stuff needs to be streamlined a bit.
Yeah. So like you said, it's definitely still an enthusiast market, and hopefully they're. All signs still point toward people like Valve and HTC believing in this product still, which is encouraging, like no one's really giving up on it yet, at least from the corporate side of things.
Yeah, well, we're getting around 2 for a headset, an improved, better headset, and that, costs them money. So clearly there's still interest in the technology, and there's still interest in making it better. And I'm all for it. I really like those first 3 months with the headset were the most magical gaming experiences I had in a long, long, long time. But once you got through the good stuff, no other good stuff really came out. So I kind of need more good stuff.
Why is your default response to that to laugh and scoff at the idea that he's having these magical experiences, Ryan? What's so bad about it?
It's not that I'm dismissive of the fact that it's a magical experience. It's just that, I kind of feel the same way about VR that I felt about smartphone gaming, which was like, for the first couple of months, you're like, oh my God, you can tilt the phone to drive. This is probably the future. You can have like
you can play Fortnite.
You could have Forza in your pocket and you could drive on the bus. That's amazing. And then like 8 years later, you're like, it's mostly just like, not that they're all bad, of course, but it's a lot of like match 3 persistent kind of pyramid scheme sort of setup games that are heavily designed to take your money. Not always, but to some extent. And like VR, I kind of feel the same way as like, it's like the infancy of the Wii, where you're like, they could do anything with this. And the developers are behind the scenes going like, what do we do with this? Like,
we can do anything with this.
Exactly. I feel more like Wii U was like that. Wii U was like, look at what can we do with this little pad? He had like, what, Zombie U, and that was like the only thing they did with the pad.
I think it's like, I don't know. I still have like some hope for VR, but I don't have any kind of like magic attached to it anymore.
Yeah,
I think
me either.
I think it could recapture it if it did something right, but I don't know. I just don't. I haven't been sold yet, and I bought it and I haven't been sold, which is damning in my mind. Like,
you're right.
Yeah, my vision of the future for VR is starting to fade a little bit and turn into cynicism, sadly. I think we're getting to the point where if they don't get their shit together on the software side, first of all, I don't know why people are buying hardware, and they're pushing the hardware with nothing to sell. So where are we going with this? It feels like it's just a dead end coming up real soon. And then they'll go, well, VR will never work, and then they'll just stop.
To latch onto that real quick, too, they are, along with the announcement of the price, they also mentioned that for pre-orders that begun, oh, wait, no, that's not today anymore, I guess. They're open now. Pre-orders are open now. They will also include a 6-month trial for Vive Port, which gives you 5 VR games of your choice every month. So they're trying to incentivize it a little more. But like you said, there's not really a lot that people are interested in getting right now. So that's sort of an empty offering to give with the pre-orders if there's not really a lot of games they want in the first place. So yeah, it's still questionable, man. It's still a tough sell, but it's getting slowly better, I think, and hopefully. Well, you know what? I'm honestly optimistic too about the game that I just mentioned earlier. I want to talk about the concepts within there that I think are really promising. So I've still got some optimism.
Don't worry. Once and if ever Star Citizen works properly and you can go in VR, Dan will be the one singing.
We're gonna have
praises.
The day that's gonna be like a 2.5-hour special. We just bring Dan on, and
he's in the headset. He never gets out. Just the whole
you
podcast.
Think Dan can change the whole industry by himself?
Dan believes he can change the whole industry by himself, and that's what's important.
That's an actual yes. Yes, I do. Yeah, there we go. So the Vive Pro, it's $800, $1,200 in Australia. Coming April. Oh, sorry. Yeah, shipping will begin on April 5th, and then should be getting out soon after that. Let's change it up a little bit. Riot, Blizzard, and Twitch teaming up to fight toxic gaming behavior online. For years now, gaming companies like these three have been fighting online abuse and harassment in their own ways. Now they're thinking, hey, why not let's try to create a bit of a standardized approach to this. Maybe try to ease the burden for all these big companies trying to figure out ways to address toxic behavior online. And they are attempting to do so with a new coalition called the Fair Play Alliance. It's an organization made up of over 30 different companies, including, as we mentioned, Riot, Blizzard, Twitch, some other big names in there as well, including Epic Games, Xbox, Supercell, I think, Alchemy Labs is on there as well.
Discord
on there, Discord's on there, right? Yeah, so some big players getting involved with this, along with the aforementioned. And I think it's got a mixed reception so far, certainly from you guys, from what the brief amount of it that we've discussed prior to the show, but also from what I've seen online. There's some folks that are encouraged by this and some folks that are a little hesitant about the potential impact this could have on online gaming. So to reel it back a little bit before we get into the big conversation there, I think in general, the big point to make here, which is actually a pulled quote from the story, is that there's no IRL in online anymore. This is just all reality now. And that's that's something that really like struck a chord for me. Like, I'm beginning to believe more and more to be true with each passing day. Like the divide between online and real life interactions is just dissolving more and more with each passing day. It's all just sort of becoming the same thing. And for them to realize that and begin to address it with that perspective in mind, I think is going to be important moving forward for addressing toxic behavior. But thoughts from the round table?
As probably the guy here who plays the most toxic game, Rainbow Six Siege, I think like probably like 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been mildly negative on this, but I think I'm relatively positive on it now because it's just, I don't know. I don't know if it's because I've been playing games for so long or because, you know, I don't know, I've gotten older, but I'm kind of just of the position where I'm like, people are saying terrible things just to say terrible things. And if you can audit the chat log and then you're just like, this person is beyond hope, then I think they should be permanently silenced or banned. If they like, if for real, like every time we record Rainbow Six Siege, like 50% chance somebody in text chat drops a racial slur or just like something outrageously and outwardly vile.
Yeah.
And this is with voice chat turned off. Then I'm like,
get rid of them.
We haven't been shown that we deserve this privilege yet. I actually think that
as a species,
exactly. Yes, I call people Load Lord. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's a good-natured ribbing, not a, you know,
racial slur.
They would just jump in a chat. People are like, I hate N-word, and you're like, that's terrible,
like, that's
and also irrelevant to the task at hand in our present round of Rainbow Six Siege.
Have you ever seen the room names for Golf with Your Friends?
It's just,
it's
and
the
that's
worst.
the thing.
Why?
The fact that that's an example
Why?
is just really damning for the entire
Of
game.
all the games, it's a happy game about golf.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, and I will say as well, I'm kind of the opinion that games like Heroes of the Storm, apparently Final Fantasy XIV does this as well, do a pretty good job of limiting toxicity by basically just making it so you can never talk to the enemy team. Like in Heroes of the Storm, you cannot talk to the enemy team. I guess if you wanted to be a big moron and you hated somebody on the enemy team because they beat you or sucked, you could go add them as a friend, wait for them to accept it, and then whisper them like some trash. But there's nobody's going to accept you in that situation to begin with. So I do
same
think
thing with Hearthstone, right? Like they have the
exactly.
They only allow you to converse in emotes,
and you can just squelch them too. So just shut them up.
Right?
If you really
want
to play your card game.
I don't know. I think those systems are good. Like when I was 14, 15, 16, I was like, oh my God, the fact that you have VoIP in every game, that's amazing. This is like what we wanted the future of online video gaming to be. And after like 2 years of that, I was like, I'm going to put Spotify on and I'm going to mute voice chat because this is just not worth the juice ain't worth the squeeze at this point. Or you play with your friends on Discord or something like that. So like on a broad sense, I support it. Do I, am I cynical about the fact that it's going to be easy to do it? Yeah, I guess a little bit, but I think that it's worth trying at least.
Yeah, let me read the mission statement to kind of provide a basis for what you just said there too. So what they're trying to do, the Fair Play Alliance, a coalition of gaming professionals and companies committed to developing quality games. We provide an open forum for the games industry to collaborate on research and best practices to encourage fair play and healthy communities in online gaming. We envision a world where games are free of harassment, discrimination, and abuse.
Nice
where
to
players
envision
can
things
express
sometimes.
themselves through play. So that's the goal. Yeah, no, that sounds perfectly achievable.
Again, it's one of those things like, well, they'll probably never in their right and like ever be able to completely wipe out any of that stuff. If they can even make a dent in it, that's still an improvement, and that's good.
Well, I think like just telling what Ubisoft has done is actually good in the sense that for like 3 years or 2 years, they kind of let the community fester. And the update that they did with Outbreak was like 3 weeks ago. They're like, we'll just ban you for toxic behavior and you might not get warned for it, but we're going to review chat logs and stuff like that and reports and see about it. Like just taking a stand and being like, you can't be a shithead or we'll kick you out. I think it's just that's a good first step, which so many companies don't even do.
If you're the one freaking out about this, chances are you're the shithead in the game.
Yeah, you most of the time you either don't need to worry about it or you might be part of the problem. Like Ubisoft is not really in the business of trying to ban their customers, especially when you consider that you can buy Siege for like $20 on sale, and they're trying to get you to purchase like their equivalent of battle passes and stuff like that. So. Or season passes.
Like they're going to ban everybody. No, they need to make money. Like they need to
exactly.
Make
they don't want to. The conspiracy that like they want to ban. What if my joke gets taken out of context? Well, if your joke can be taken out of context to be that offensive,
then it's a bad joke.
You could just chuckle about it to yourself, or like.
Well, hang on. No dissenting opinion here. Let's hear it.
I want to play devil's advocate just for a second, even though I'm not really sure where I land on this, but I might be sort of in the middle. So I feel like we've got a lot of tools for moderation already, right? They give us the ability to block people pretty regularly. Somebody pisses you off, you make them go away. The one thing we never seem to have for some reason is the ability to just close text chat, just simply not allow it to show up. If I had that, so Rocket League does. Okay. Most games don't for some reason. You're forced to look at some scrolling list of words that people want to write. Why don't they just let you close that?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that kind of take care of all of the rest of the problems?
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, turning it all off, like that's certainly the solution, right? Like if you don't want to try to create positive, healthy communication online, then preventing it from even happening is definitely the way to go, right? But
okay, Chad's saying most games let you do that. I feel like they don't, but
do,
maybe I've just missed the ones that let you. I feel like that would be the big step in moderation that I would need to just be like, well, okay, we don't really need a regulating body if we can just stop this ourselves. Is that weird to say?
No, I don't disagree that like we have certainly a degree of personal responsibility associated with this. Like, and there's all these tools already that we have at our disposal. If we don't want to be subjected to this stuff, we can prevent it for the most part, right? But I think like the bigger picture here, like they've kind of said in the mission statement, is they don't want the solution to be just cut it out, you know? They don't want to eliminate the communication online. They want to try to keep encouraging people to be open to talking to each other in online games, but they're just trying to address the toxicity behind it. They're trying, like, part of the article too, they seem like they're a lot less focused on what behavior related issues are happening and more on what is happening within the games themselves that is causing people to feel this way. Because they're noticing, like, based on the research and stuff, they're noticing increased trends, not just in people getting mad, but just like everyone getting mad at games in general, because the environment itself is just so toxic. It's just prevalent and spreading everywhere.
And in team games specifically too, like you can close chat, but if you're playing with a bunch of people you don't know, how are you going to communicate with them? Like it's like games you need to work together, like in League of Legends or in Rainbow Six Siege and that stuff. Like you could play without listening to anybody, but then you really don't have a way of talking about where you might see somebody or where you might hear a noise or whatever. So you cut off that problem, but now you're playing a different game that is way less fun.
I really think like most of the people that say dumb, horrible shit in in-game chat are actually not bad people most of the time. I think it's like
stupid people.
Well, that's no. I feel like it's we let video game like online culture sort of just be like we built the tool and now you guys you've taken ownership over it, and the people that don't want to get involved because they're like I don't really like it, just turn it off. So it's kind of just left to the people that are like, oh, it'll be really funny if I say something incendiary right now. So I do agree.
People with him are laughing at it, so he keeps getting encouraged by it.
People are, and it's like a self-propagating thing as well. So I think what people are thinking about is that it's going to be some kind of central database. And if you ever say, you know, I voted for Trump, they're going to put your name in the database and you're silenced in all video games ever from this point onwards.
Dude, those are the same people who believe the moon is hollow.
But like, I'm following this down to like a logical line. Enforcement is maybe like one step of it. But I think that also there's just kind of like, you know, companies can take the responsibility and be like, hey, here's like the guidelines for our community. And for once, we're actually going to enforce them and be more proactive instead of just like, oh my God, our community sucks, and now we have to take like a flamethrower to a third of it just to make it survivable now. So I think even just stepping in, like, I think it means a lot for Twitch to step up and be like, this is not acceptable on our platform anymore. Some of the things that happen and have become memes, and people just laugh it off and say like, oh, well, it's just part of Twitch culture. It's just sort of like funny. It's a meme that we do. Why are you taking offense to it? Well, I understand where you're coming from, because we get that backlash all the time on our show, but for Twitch to step up and say, hey, maybe that's like thoughtless and not really okay, that's a good first step. And then after that, ban people or time them out or take away features or whatever.
Don't all of the things we use already have a TOS? They just
it's not enforced most of the time.
It's not enforced, yeah.
So like, what exactly is changing here?
They're really enforcing it. They're starting to enforce it. That's all.
I mean, nothing is really tangibly changing right now is the thing, like it's not like this is really going to result in any big issues being resolved immediately anytime soon. I think is more symbolic than anything. I think it's just to acknowledge that there's a problem, and that's the big names all coming together to acknowledge that there's a problem and making an organization based around that. So it's not like they're doing nothing, but at the moment there's no like definitive plan in place for what their goal, or like they know their goal, but they don't know what their actions are going to be.
Yeah, I just worry it could end up being sort of like one of those war on drugs type of things, with just sort of this big nebulous problem they're going to tackle. And we're gonna
take care of that toxicity.
Stop all the drugs. Well, you can't really do that. You can't really stop all the toxicity either, but you can make an effort. So if they make an effort, good.
It's unusual to me, or not unusual. It's surprising to me that we're kind of on opposite sides of the issue, even if I'm like only mildly positive and you're only mildly negative towards it. Because I'm
just trying to give the other side is all.
I kind of feel like my Twitch chat is relatively untamed. Like truly terrible stuff gets banned and the mods have like free reign to ban it. But like stuff that is maybe mildly controversial, or hey, it's an ill-advised joke and it went wrong, usually it's just sort of like live and let live. My perception is that you moderate your chat like much more stringently than that. So that's why I find myself...
My chat almost moderates itself. Like I mostly don't have to do anything. People are just kind of nice. So I don't really see much toxicity anymore. Maybe I live in an echo chamber.
Oh, is it because enough people have been banned that the community is good, or is it because
I think that
very rarely do people get banned.
It's one of those things where the streamer cultivates the community.
Yeah,
and
they just get bored. Like there's no reason for them to come in and say inflammatory stuff. There's no one to be inflamed.
Yeah, say if somebody comes in to stir some shit and drop a bad joke and there's no reaction, or they just immediately get timed out or whatever, that shit's gonna stop very, very quickly.
Yeah, I don't think, honestly, that like individual Twitch chats are going to be a very good example of like in general toxicity online, because like you guys have said, they sort of weed themselves out, the bad apples. They realize that they're not in an environment they will be welcome in, and they go away. Whereas if they just jump over to SGDQ with an open chat a couple years ago with 300,000 people spamming the N-word, like, hey, look what I can do, ha ha ha. So...
Marty says this is a bad word. I'm gonna type it.
If I banned you for saying bad rats, just send me a message on Twitter. I'll unban you.
You perma people for saying bad rats?
Years ago, I did. You know that.
He was a different man. Come on, he's grown up. I'm a little mixed on it still, though, because like we haven't even really necessarily touched on the issue of censorship either. But I think we sort of addressed it because, again, they're not really looking to make any big changes right now. They're not going to issue any sweeping doctrine that covers all online games that says no one's allowed to be mean anymore because Xbox said so. This is just an effort to acknowledge an issue exists, and I suppose that's just where we should start.
The reaction was to hear them say that made me go, a bunch of people are going to go, oh, they're trying to cut down our ability to have free speech. Let's say all the bad things we can now. That seems like it's often the reaction.
Gotta get it all out real quick. So I feel like
I have the storage of naughty words right next to my heart, and I just gotta empty through my fingertips.
Dude, I disagree like a lot with some of the decisions made at SGDQ and AGDQ.
Sure.
And I understand like they went sub only because chat was toxic. But then when I look at like what's happening to some extent on people that are like anti that decision, they'll be like, they're censoring me because people were saying terrible words and then they would go to the chat and sub and say a terrible word and get banned, which was like a foregone conclusion. And then they'd go to like a subreddit or they'd be on Twitter and be like, I paid to subscribe to this channel. No, they go like, I can't believe I got censored from GDQ for saying this terrible thing. The thing is, I also understand, and I don't know if I'm in the, like, maybe this is a little controversial. To some extent, the more you moderate a chat, the more you invite bad actors to some extent. I think you almost like provoke people with that sort of situation. So I don't know if that was the right decision for them to take or if they're going to approach it differently in the future because I don't have any information on how it went for them. But I don't know. I'm wary of the idea that like incredibly strict moderation leads to the community getting better. I think that just leads to you cut like 80% of the community, got like 20% that follow the rules to begin with. I think there's a more elegant way to kind of like shape the community and basically like if you can get other people in the chat to not react to negative stuff. And I think your chat does a good job of this, like Nick. But if you can get other people in the chat to not react to negative stuff and obvious trolling, and if they do react, just go like, hey, dude, that was a dumb joke and it wasn't funny. Then that person, instead of getting like an adrenaline hit for like, I trolled them, instead they just go, oh, I'm sad because I feel bad now. And they leave, or maybe the next time they come back, they're more thoughtful about the way they communicate.
It's almost like a calming tone becomes this exponential force that calms people down. If you just don't, if you don't meet a force with another force and you let them pass by each other, they both just relax.
Well, it's like, that similar. It's honestly that similar idea back in elementary school when your mom's like, when you're getting picked on, just ignore them. They just want to get a rise out of you. It's that idea, just not ignoring them, but just addressing them like an adult, even if they're a child.
Hopefully making them acknowledge their own stupidity if possible. But
and I'm aware what I just said was rather silly, but I mean, under it is like, I think a sort of an ethos that I follow anyway.
Well, along those same lines, like it's interesting to consider the ways that they've attempted to address toxicity in the past. Like consider things like the way Dota does like that low matchmaking priority queue or whatever it is. If you end up
place is a pit.
Yeah, it's not a good solution, I don't think, because you're just putting all the angry demons in a pit with each other to fuck each other up, and it's making them all worse. No one's getting better in that place. They're just getting more angry until they finally are released and then put out into the world again twice as pissed. Those systems don't work.
I'm imagining winding up a Beyblade and then releasing it in public. And it's just got razors.
Like a really racist Beyblade, like just stop putting them all in the same goddamn arena.
Or honestly, just leave them all in that arena. Let them all yell at each other.
Yeah.
I figure they eventually run out of spin and just fall over, right?
Just leave them all priority.
All these racist Beyblades.
Some of them are goddamn Energizer bunnies of racism. It's ridiculous.
I really think that there's like 90% of the people acting like garbage online in real life are like, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I really, thank you, sir. You're welcome. Oh, my mistake. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Yeah. But then like 10% of them are vile. And that's the real problem, is that when their name is like Chicken Fucker 40, like you got to analyze a lot of data. You got to analyze a lot of data to separate the fake chaff from the real chaff. So yeah,
it's true. Yeah, it's complicated, man. Like context obviously plays a large role in a lot of situations. If you're talking about like you're queuing up with friends and you're all talking shit to each other, you don't want those text logs to be weighed with your actual garbage that you're spewing with other people. Like you got to consider a lot of different things most of the time.
Well, like when I'm being toxic in Siege, it's ironic toxicity.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, you're never really mad, right?
No, Ryan, no.
I swear, dude, like, and this is the polarized world that the games industry is, even though it is a industry about toys. Like we
get so mad. We all get so mad
in Siege.
Well, I can't.
We'll make fun of people that say terrible stuff in the in-game chat, and then when somebody takes a while to load, we'll say hello, load lord, and there'll be like one comment with 200 upvotes that's like, aren't you as bad as the bad guys by saying, hey, load lord? Like maybe they derive their self-worth from their GPU and you're really insulting them. And I'm like, you are
Be more sensitive, man.
Jeez. That's extremely stupid. I'm sorry.
You know, another question of this whole thing is we generally look at moderation not in terms of the carrot and the stick, but just in terms of the stick.
Yeah.
Why do we not have a carrot? Why is there not a reward for good behavior in moderation?
There is in some games. So, like in Dota, for instance, there's the commend system.
Okay.
And if you get commended enough, like you get these ranks and stuff, you are rewarded for being a good person and being like a coach or, you know, just a positive attitude. It's just, I don't think Siege has something like that though, right? Do you have a commend system in Siege?
Oh God, no.
Okay.
League does that too, though. I know that.
Yeah, League also has that.
I don't think there needs to be a commend system in Siege because everybody has just turned off all forms of communication. But I agree. Like any system that incentivizes good behavior or at least neutral behavior is good.
I think there's like, it's probably more of a Western thing than anything, honestly. There's a little bit of an obsession with the stick, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I agree with you.
There's too much focus on the punishment, just in general, not even necessarily with online games. People really like to see someone get wrecked for their.
You know what they say? You catch more flies with honey than vinegar, right?
Do they say that? I never even heard that.
I think they say that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So put some honey out instead of hitting them with the vinegar, and maybe they'll act a little nicer.
Hmm.
Or
catch some more flies.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Fair Play Alliance. We'll see how this all pans out. It's a fairly new thing. They just made some, or they gave some presentations at GDC this past week, talking about research that they've been performing, ways that they're looking to improve the online experience for everybody. So we'll see what comes of that.
And it's gone. I don't remember what I was going to say. Okay.
All right. Right on.
I hate that.
Let's swap over to the Ubisoft Vivendi thing real quick. We'll just touch on that for a few minutes. Ubisoft reaches an agreement with Vivendi for its full exit from Ubisoft's share capital. So you may recall, we've discussed this a couple of times. Vivendi was attempting what is referred to as an aggressive takeover of Ubisoft. So they were more or less just trying to buy as much stake in the company as possible, slowly just accruing more and more shares over time until eventually Vivendi was the majority stockholder, and then they would have basically full control of the company at that point. No longer going to be the case, which I think is pretty much mostly good news for folks that care about the game industry. Ubisoft has announced on the 20th of March that they will be reacquiring 30 million shares from Vivendi, which represents 27.3% of the stock or of the share capital in Ubisoft. In layman's terms, Ubisoft is buying back control of the company from Vivendi. So that's good. Vivendi, of course, the company started in 1853 by Napoleon's nephew. You're probably very familiar with that little factoid. They own quite a bit over in the European market. And they were involved with Activision Blizzard until fairly recently as well. Activision Blizzard actually a few years ago announced something very similar, the purchase of 429 million shares from Vivendi back in 2013. So that, first of all, that kind of puts the perspective of how much bigger Activision Blizzard is than Ubisoft. That's kind of nuts. But also, just the Vivendi going away is more or less the big story here. So more good news from Ubisoft. Of course, last week we were talking about their pursuits of more dedicated server technologies with that Greek word that's escaped me now, but you remember it. And it's just been good news for the most part from them, despite the Rainbow Six Siege communication issues. But hey, can all be great.
Yeah, Ubisoft has been on an upward trend as far as a company of that size is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. So yeah, not
I
much.
guess is it Ubisoft too? Just is like tangentially related, but the leak that the next Assassin's Creed is going to take place in ancient Greece.
Oh really?
Yeah, I saw that on Reddit.
I did see someone write that in my chat at one point, and I said I don't know.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it posted on Reddit, and then there was somebody's like, every time it's been leaked, it's never been wrong.
Yeah. Well, yeah, cool. There we go. Again, not much to talk about here. Just sort of a good news situation. Again, Ubisoft is regaining control of the company. They won't be swayed by outside powers too much anymore. There we go.
Business.
Woo! Let's talk about a game. Hey, Mathis, tell me about Kirby Star Allies, would you?
Oh yeah, Kirby is an okay game. is what I'm gonna write as the title. So yeah, Kirby All-Star Allies is the new Kirby game for Nintendo by HAL Entertainment. It's a Kirby game. HAL Laboratories. It's a Kirby game. It's okay. So the idea, if you lived under a rock and never played a Kirby game, you play as a pink puffball, go from left to right, suck up enemies, SUCC, absorb their abilities, and beat the game. All Kirby games are ridiculously easy, very, very charming in its aesthetics. It's cute, it's adorable, and it's meant more, in my opinion, as like a de-stressor than an actual like challenging game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I haven't played much of it. It is an okay game from my time with it thus far. It is a very easy game, even in terms of Kirby standards are concerned.
You're being so nice, dude.
I don't like it very much. I really don't. I don't like it very much. I think it's actually it's hard because I've never been a big Kirby fan since like for a very, very long time, and I haven't played maybe the last like 5 Kirby games. So it's hard for me to compare it to like the newer stuff because I don't know. Maybe this is what Kirby games have been now for a long time. Yeah. But the game. So the idea is this is a Kirby game where you recruit up to 3 friends, either NPCs or your actual friends, and you go through the levels together. And there are certain quote-unquote puzzles that you have to get through that the 4 of you are required to do, and you play through it, and it's a simple game. The problem is, unless you have 4 friends to play with, at least half of them, if not all of them, like in my case, are going to be controlled by the computer. And if they're all controlled by the computer, they don't give you time to solve the puzzle. They just solve the puzzle for you. So the computers just walk forward and they just solve the puzzles, and they pull the levers and jump on the little handles, and the puzzle gets solved and it's all done. On top of that, it is such a colorful, bright, messy looking game that when there's 4 things running around on the screen that are not even the enemies, and the enemies get involved, there's so much shit happening, I lose myself on the screen all the time.
You're usually zoomed in fairly close, too. There's really not a lot of space to work with. Even if it was just Kirby, it'd still be kind of cluttered.
Yeah. I try to get rid of as many of my party members as possible until I absolutely need them, because when you absolutely need them, there's usually like a little stand there that you can recruit them from. So you don't have to worry about it. But there's so much happening on the screen. It is just not pleasant to look at. And it says something when I'm playing the game. It's messy. I don't know what's happening. I don't know where I am, but I still come out victorious anyway without having lost any health. That indicates the real difficulty of the game in general.
It is the easiest game I've ever played.
Yeah.
Like, full stop, dude. It plays itself. You don't have to do anything.
Have you played ABC Coloring Town? Because that's actually the easiest game.
Okay. So
you just click and it
colors. I didn't say there weren't any easier games.
Okay.
I just said it's the easiest game I've played. But you don't even have to do anything. You really don't. You just walk forward and
the computer do it all.
Will finish the level for you. I'm not exaggerating. It's ridiculous. And like you said, they just solve the puzzles before you even have a chance to actually see what's happening on the screen. It's less a game and more, like you said, it's like a de-stressing exercise. Because while I was playing it, I did find myself enjoying it, but I wasn't feeling challenged at all. I wasn't really even feeling like I was playing a game. In fact, sometimes I just kind of felt like I was working, like, well, mostly because I knew I was playing it for the podcast, but at the same time, I was like, I'm just sort of, I'm literally just going through the motions here. Like, I'm going to get to the end of this stage, go through a door, and then I'll have a new way to press B for a couple minutes, and that's going to be the extent of it. Like, it's really, really tough to recommend, despite the fact that it's beautiful and fun and happy and charming and whimsical. It's everything you want in a Kirby game with none of the challenge of an actual video game.
There's just no game to play. That's the problem. Like, that's my issue with it so far, is that there is just... the game isn't fun because fun indicates that you actually have any input in the game, and you just don't. Not unless if you get. I'd be curious what it's like to play with another person or like 3 other people. And
I think it would be a lot better.
That's probably the way. I mean, again, we're shitting on it from a single player perspective. I do wonder if that's the game. That's the way it's meant to be played. But at the same time, I can still see myself getting lost and confused because there's nonsense happening on the screen at all times.
I played a minimal amount of it with Elise, so I can kind of offer the like
the 2-player experience. All right,
yeah, like it's better definitely, and you notice that like it's a lot more fun and engaging when you have another human person that you can interact with, because you got things like, so we haven't even really talked about the mechanics at all because they don't really matter.
You
honestly,
jump,
because it doesn't even really.
You jump, you suck. You go through door.
But there's things that they do to make it a little more interesting. Like they have the element effects, so you can suck up certain enemies, like the ice guys, for example. If you suck them up and take their power, then you can apply the ice effect to the weapons on your friends. So there's things like that, and then there's certain times where you have to use those to interact with the environment. So they do things like that. But again, it's usually like the situation ends up being you'll go into this secret stage room, and the guy whose power you need to complete the room is just on a pedestal right above you. So even if you don't have him, it's like, okay, you just go grab him and then do the thing, and then okay, I'm done. I did it.
The aspect that you brought up, actually, there's so much potential there. So basically, there's 2 types of enemies. One type of enemy gives you like a base attack or a base weapon, and then there's the elemental type of enemy that gives you kind of like this magic attack, and those elemental enemies can power up those base enemy weapons. So like you said, if Kirby gets a power where he's swinging a sword or he has a whip, and then your other friend gets the fire ability, you can combine them and give your friend like a fire sword or a fire whip. There's some really neat ideas I could see that could create some really engaging puzzles that could make for fun exploration or secret areas that you'd have to discover and stuff, but none of that exists.
Not that I've seen so far, anyway. And I've played through a good portion of it at this
point. I also
hear
the game is very, very short.
Yeah, I think I'm like 35% of the way through already. I've only played like a few hours, so it's not really looking like it's going to be that much.
It's not so good either. I only played the demo, and I feel like I got a representative piece with 2 levels of the game. They let you do like a grass area and a castle area in the demo.
Yeah, I did the demo too, yeah.
And just from that, I could tell all of my problems and all of the things that they just said were mostly confirmed for me. And I'm actually like a Kirby fan. I was quite excited for this game. I've played the original one on Nintendo, a couple on the SNES, the one on Game Boy. I haven't played really the weird ones on the DS and like the ones that do weird mechanics, but those are out there as well. And the Kirby golf game, I actually like that quite a bit.
Yeah,
that's quite hard actually.
The SNES one.
Yeah, the Kirby golf, where it's just like a weird puzzle made out of golf pieces.
It's good. I like
it's unique for sure. But the problem that I had right away was, like you said, the clutter was just too much. And I didn't want to put up with that. I wanted to just play as Kirby. And I thought this was kind of them doing a return to form of, hey, we're just going to make a regular Kirby game. But they made the 4-player thing be all-inclusive. And I didn't want that. I just wanted to be Kirby. Granted, he's usually had a buddy, and that was a thing that they introduced from the SNES on. But not a buddy that, like, was a co-equal with you in the game at all times. So I didn't really want them solving puzzles, and I kind of wanted them to just like go in my inventory until I wanted to pull one out. I'd prefer it be more like a Mega Man system instead of just everyone's doing stuff all the time. But it still has the charm of a Kirby game, and it still has the powers, which is kind of the main draw for me. And the synergies between the powers is an awesome idea. It's too bad that they didn't use it more in creative ways.
Like it feels like there's so much untapped potential with it, and they just sort of accepted that they could get away with a pretty standard basic platformer because it's a Kirby game. But there's like so many unused combinations. They could really like almost go Binding of Isaac with this, where they got so many different elements that could combine and make different combinations of effects and different shit like that. They could really go crazy with it, but they didn't at all. They played it super safe.
I feel like they just wanted to make a new Super Mario Brothers out of Kirby, and it just didn't really work in that format, sadly.
What were you gonna say, Ryan?
You know, correct me if I'm wrong. It's more of a question than it is a statement. But it sounds like instead of most Nintendo stuff, which is friendly for all ages, this is like meant for people under the age of... This is
for your 5-year-old.
It is. And I think Kirby games have always been like that. But to this extent, it's even easier than normal.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's for a 5-year-old. This might be for like a 3-year-old, to be honest.
Okay. When was the last time you talked to a 3-year-old? Because
it wasn't too long ago, actually.
We occasionally go down and see like my sister-in-law and my 2 nieces who are like 2 and 5 or something like that. And they are, you couldn't give them too much. Let me put it that way. They can speak 2 languages.
How are you gonna get out of this one?
Well, that's
They can
pretty
speak 2 languages fluently.
I
but
can't
they're
speak
like
2 languages, man. Holy shit.
They're like, Mom, can you open the YouTube app on the iPhone? So I don't know. You're not sitting them down in front of too many complex mechanics.
I don't know, dude. I was watching my nephew play Minecraft at 4 fucking years old, and that blew my mind.
Oh, well, the Minecraft, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a game for babies.
Hulk and Laboratory is an interesting group too, man. They've been like Nintendo exclusive for all of 40 years, doing all the Kirby joints, and then Mother series, Earthbound, and then Smash Brothers too. I didn't realize that was them as well.
Kirby is just one of those things where when it pops up during, and like I'm a dick, but when it pops up during a Nintendo Direct and people are like, Kirby, I'm like, the best Kirby game is Smash Bros. Why? It's like when they announced like the new Yoshi game, and there is some people, not a ton, but there's some people that are like Yoshi, and I'm like,
I still like the old Kirbys. They're just very basic platformers with a twist to getting powers, and that's kind of the whole deal. It's not a complex game, and it's not meant to be complex, and that's okay. I don't know if it's worth $60 for me though.
This is not.
I think that's the thing that's turned me off the most, is how fucking expensive this game is. It's a full-priced game, and
this is the same price as Mario Odyssey. Like, what the fuck?
And
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves, yeah, of course, Sea of Thieves. That's the real great game that we can't wait to talk
We're
about.
trying to figure out, this industry has always had an issue with the valuation of games. You can't be throwing us these fucking curveballs when you price Kirby and Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild at the same goddamn price, and probably won't ever reduce the price on any of them.
But Bear, then Binding of Isaac should be $62,000.
You're right. You're right. It should be. I don't know what the hell he was thinking.
What they should have just done with Binding of Isaac is take 5% off of Ryan's earnings, and they would have made a ton of money.
Yeah.
There you go.
Then he'd be a billionaire for sure.
and release the game for free. Dude,
There you
I
go.
might be into that economic proposal.
That's actually a genius.
It's
That's a weird one.
You probably have like 10 times the amount of people who ever touched Isaac. I'm looking at the YouTube SEO search rankings, and I'm like, maybe the juice is worth the squeeze.
Would you have paid $62,000 for the Binding of Isaac if you got to be the only one who ever owned it?
Ooh.
I would have paid it for Rebirth.
Fair. Fair.
Couldn't ask for a better answer.
That's a damn fine Steam quote, man. I would have paid $64,000 to be the only owner of this
62.
on planet Earth. Oh,
It's
62.
62.
Sorry, yeah. That's a
I'm
little...
still mad that it's $40 on Switch, but if you ignore that, sure, it's 62 grand. Why not?
Just throw that out. Yeah, why not? Kirby Star Allies, it is $60, so just don't buy it. Just don't, because it's not worth $60. Sorry.
Or they have a demo for a reason. Play the
They do have
demo.
a demo.
If you really love the demo, then obviously go out and grab it.
And kudos to them, because the demo is actually a pretty good demo. It's fairly thorough.
It's like maybe a half an hour's worth of gameplay, I think. Something like
And that's
that.
all you really need to really understand what the game's about.
Absolutely.
I feel like there's like if this was like an RPG, Nintendo is like the #1 support class right now. It's like, even if your game is like a 7 out of 10, it gets like a plus 40% hype bonus because Nintendo's in your party.
Yeah.
So that's I'm like,
fair.
I was like, why are we talking about Kirby? All right. The Switch
Nintendo's
is
playing
killing
the
it.
hunting
And-
horn.
yeah, Nintendo's using their active
Switch
buff
is
right
like
now.
the fastest selling console of all time now in the US.
Despite all these criticisms of Kirby, Kirby is the #1 game in Japan right now. So, what are you
That's
gonna
crazy.
do?
Japan loves Kirby, man.
Mm-hmm.
He's cute.
He's cute. The game's cute. I mean, I was smiling while I was playing.
Yeah.
It's
When
it's-
the giant ball of like Waddle Dees comes rolling down.
Yeah, no, there's some really
adorable.
cute, adorable visuals that happen in that game all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing, I want to nitpick again really quick. Just one thing that I'm not liking, a trend that I'm noticing in the games industry in general, is these cutscenes that have no audio besides just a song that plays in the background. Usually it's just like an orchestra, and it's just like a movie. But you're watching things happen, but there's no audio happening for what is going on screen.
Money saver.
I know, yeah. Obviously, it's a
Wait,
money-
you want like a voice acted Kirby?
No, I'm just saying like a thud or an explosion sound, if anything, just to make it like I want to hear what I'm seeing. But it just sort of takes me out of it when I'm just listening to a song and all this shit's going on.
Right.
Final Fantasy 15 actually did that too, but I think that was more because they were taking scenes directly from the movie or something like that. So they may have had a different issue. But I don't like that. I don't want people to do that anymore. Anyway, Kirby Star Allies, $60 on Switch. There you go. Let's talk about Sea of Thieves, Ryan.
Mads, did you play?
No, I've watched.
It's just me. Okay.
I've watched a lot of it, however.
Dude, so
I also have, yeah.
Sea of Thieves is obviously like, I don't know, maybe one of the more anticipated games this year on the Xbox One. Maybe one of the more anticipated games ever on Xbox One. And it's a multiplayer only pirate simulator. So you and up to 3 of your buddies get on a ship together, and the way the game works from a basic gameplay loop standpoint, you go into the town or the port, you get a quest. The quest is essentially a map. You all vote on whatever quest you want to do. You look at your map and you go, okay, the island's shaped like a kidney. Then you go to this big map and you all go, okay, there's Kidney Island. We're going to mark it. We're all going to work together and sail over there, which is actually pretty fun. Then you get to the island and you look at your map and there's like an X somewhere. So you got to figure out, you're like using, your compass and figuring out where the X is. And you dig it up and you get a treasure chest. You put it back on your boat. You sail back to the port where you started. You drop your chest off. And if they fix the bug, they give you some gold.
If they fix the bug.
And then you do that.
If the game is out of beta, you might get some money.
You do that until you're tired of it.
Until the server goes down.
Well, I'll cut them a little bit of slack, even though I thought they've really bungled up launch day. They did release a video and they were like 8 times the people that played the beta, which was free, were trying to get in on launch day. So the real
their marketing worked.
Yeah.
Yes. But I will say, and we'll talk about this, I guess, once we get in a couple of minutes towards the end of this section, but you don't have to pay for Sea of Thieves. There's a Xbox Game Pass that you can get a 2-week free trial on, which gives you access to it for free, and then it's like $10 a month after that. So it almost seems like it was kind of like a way to promote the Game Pass, if all else went wrong, which it might have actually done. But you can literally get it for free at this point, which is pretty fair.
You have to pay for gold?
You don't have to pay for gold, but you get gold for doing the...
So it all works itself out.
I'm curious because I've watched a bunch of people play Sea of Thieves, including the couple videos you've put out so far, and the game seems entirely like there's 3 or 4 different types of quests, but they all are the same quest more or less. Go to island, get treasure, fight monster, go back, and just do that ad infinitum. Yeah. But it seems like the most fun you have had is in the PvP aspect of the game.
Yeah, so on the very start of the first video that we did, we were like, I really hope we see some people for the first time ever. Because the idea is that you're kind of instanced, I guess similar to the way that you do in Absolver.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So you and maybe, I don't know, a few other parties will be spawned in, and then you might dynamically come across people, and you could choose to fight or not fight, I guess, but everybody just shoots at each other as soon as they see them. And this leads to probably the thing that people would be most interested in is the emergent gameplay. If you go to the Sea of Thieves subreddit, once you filter out all the posts that are I don't see why people don't enjoy the game, I'll just turn your brain off, you snobs, and in 6 years it might be a masterpiece. Once you get all those posts out of the way, it's exclusively Paradox style, you won't believe what happened, and it's all some variant of I stole their treasure.
Right.
And that's cool. It's cool that it's not you're about to get into an encounter. You kind of choose how to handle it, and when you sink their ship and take their treasure, you're I'm cool. And that was a fun thing. But I've also heard that the ship mechanics, this is secondhand from Pause on Pause, but the ship mechanics are not that good because when you sink the ship respawns a little bit after that, and they can just come back and sort of hunt you, and then you die and you respawn and you come back and hunt them, and then they die and they...
And isn't the way it works too is if you die and your ship's still around, you just respawn right back on the ship?
Usually, yeah.
Back on the ship and you're just right back in the fight instantaneously.
To be honest, I have... I'm not 100% sure of that mechanic. I only died once and I respawned on port, but sometimes people would die and they'd respawn on our ship.
Okay.
And so the real problem is what you said, there's multiple kinds of quests, but they all boil down to almost exactly the same thing. We did one fight and later, 2 days later, I read a review that was like, this part was intense. And I was like, was it? Did we do the same thing? We found a map that was like, kill the 4 skeleton boss lords. And then we went to the island that was on the map and we went like, I don't see anybody. And then these skeletons started chasing us down, but they're slow and skeletons. So, you know, you're hitting them with a sword and they're not dying. And you're like, what's up with that? It turns out you have to shoot them. And then once you shoot them, the big skeleton bosses spawn. You only get 6 ammo in your default gun, at least from the start. And then you just stand next to like the infinite ammo crate and go like, and then you kill them and you get 4 skulls and you take them back to base. And then when you take them back to base, they're like, here's 1,000 gold. And you're like, oh, what do I do with 1,000 gold? And so you could buy a mermaid that goes on the front of your ship, or you know, you could buy a sniper rifle instead of your default like weird flintlock pistol. And it's just like, it's super. The one positive thing I want to talk about is the sailing, and the fact that you co-op with each other when you sail is so good. To be like steering the ship, and then somebody's down in the map room and they're like, hey, you have to turn like 30 degrees to the right, and then you turn the wheel and you're like, the people that are manning the sails like move the angles of the sails in order to go into the, like, actually get them to billow, is super cool.
It actually requires you to like properly sail a ship.
So
require is kind of a strong word,
but cooperate.
Like,
it requires
you're incentivized for sure.
But okay, so this my point was, and this may be reductive, but all the fun parts of Sea of Thieves sounds like all the fun parts of Guns of Icarus Online, but Guns of Icarus is a more fun combat game as well.
Maybe, but like I haven't played Guns of Icarus except at like an event, so I can't really say.
You know, it's the same thing. One person's the captain and doing the steering, while one person's trying to give the directions, and one person's dealing with the engines and making sure they're running properly. Everybody has a role, and it's that same thing.
Like, I like the concept of Sea of Thieves more, but maybe in execution it works out. Like, I like the idea of Sea of Thieves more. That it's kind of like, because Guns of Icarus doesn't have like an objective, and then combat happens. It's like,
it's all
you are
fighting.
2 ships that fight each other, right? Or
it's like 5 or 6 ships that all in one big map, and there's sometimes teams. And
I'm really into the idea that Sea of Thieves is like, you have a quest, like you have a big loop that's like, go get treasure, bring it back. And then in the middle of that loop, occasionally you'll come across enemies and you'll be like, okay, I have to fight them. Or like, I want to run away from these guys. Like I've slowed them down and now I'm just going to like sail away as fast as possible. But the real problem is that it's like, it's boring, like sinfully boring. At least I think. You do one quest, you get the treasure, you're like, that was fun, what's next? And you're like, oh, it's the same thing, like again and again and again and again and again. It's only there's sharks and then there's a kraken,
but that's not enough.
So many of the streams I've watched are just still, or not still images, but just like people that are just watching the water, or just kind of down on the boat, kind of meandering around, like nothing's really happening. Or when there's like combat going on, it doesn't really look that engaging, the combat. Like, it doesn't really feel like there's a lot of response to what you're doing, and it doesn't feel like the actions like have a lot of weight to them. You know what I mean? Like shooting a gun, for example, I typically want to feel a little bit of a kickback from that, and I want to feel the impact when they're shot by it. I don't really see that happening in this game.
Well, like, fighting skeletons is boring. So like, the skeletons come at you with a sword, and some of the big ones have a gun, but then like, you just go like, and just crush them. Like, there's no more nuance than that. And then it's almost like you kind of feel like there's been some mistake when you play the game for more than 2 hours. You're like, we're missing. So you're like, do we sail to a new port? And then they're like, you've beaten the tutorial, now you get to do really cool stuff. And it's just, you get a map, you go to the island, you left click on a couple skeletons, and then you don't even have to left click on the skeletons. You could just land your ship or dock it like as close as possible to the X, and then just go in and be like, just pop it off. And like,
is there any NPC ships, or the only ships out there are other players?
The only ships out there are other players. And I won't say like, I can't damn the game for this, because obviously there were like a ton of people playing, but we played for 3 hours. We saw one ship in the first half hour, and then no other ships ever again.
But if tons of people are playing, wouldn't you expect to see?
That's what your thing is. Like, the instances should be more crowded. But I have seen like the other, I've seen other people say like the opposite. That is like, people just get ganked all the time. Like, ships hang out at port, and then as soon as you try to leave, they just like blow you away. So There's a lot of really cool stuff in the game. The sailing is super cool. Like that, it's a really good engine for like a co-op combat or racing game or something like that. That was all PvP instead of just like the PvE stuff is just not there. And then
it seems like they need to finish the game. Like they haven't even like they did the mechanics, they got the sailing really nice, and now they need to make the game.
It really does feel like it's not this bad, but it really is like a tech demo. Where if you got this as a demo for free, you would be like, oh my god, these guys are gonna knock it out of the park. It's gonna be incredible. As it stands right now, you're like this. I've done it. Like we didn't fight the Kraken, but we did like everything else.
Yeah.
I have literally no desire to go back to Sea of Thieves.
I thought we dropped the subject for 100 years now or forever, but it does remind me a little bit of the launch of No Man's Sky. And I'm not looking to shit on No Man's Sky more, but it seems similar critiques and people being like,
a fucking alarm that it
I know, right? The No Man flip it, No Man's Sky alarm. But it sounds similar to the same critiques because when No Man's Sky came out, myself included, the biggest problem was like, this is it? Like, this is the game? Because all this other stuff you expected and you never really had it.
Yeah, it has the same response, too, which is like the vast majority
of the first hour is like, wow.
Well, I mean, yeah, to some extent. But I will say, if we hadn't hit like that first PvP combat and then we won it, we probably would have been way more negative on the game than we are even to this point. We left like the first half hour being like, that was a great sort of PAX demo slice of the game. Mm-hmm. And then 2.5 hours later, we were just waiting for like, please something happen to us that interrupts the mundanity of just like the first time you do it, you're like, oh, this is novel. And the second time you do it, you're like, I'm playing my accordion. And then the third time you do it, you're like, something, please. Oh, there's a storm.
Do you know what the limit or like how many ships, other players or whatever are allowed in the same instance? Like what the cap is? I'm curious because the map looks really big. So if the limit is like 3 or 4 ships, that's kind of tiny.
Is that just the issue? Is the map is so huge, everyone's just sailing in their own little area looking for pirates?
Well, I think it's not even that big for one, but like I think you'd also just get tired of the PvP pretty quickly as well. You'd be like, oh, apparently it's 24 players. So
24 players, so
yeah, six galleons,
okay,
That, like, to some extent, your mileage will vary depending on like what you put in. If you're super hyped for this game and you're reading these stories on Sea of Thieves and you're like, it was dark of night and I piloted my sloop secretly up to the enemy galleon. And what it really amounts to is like
they're telling their own story in their head.
You're just role playing.
Yeah, they're role playing. It's like me going to the Eve subreddit and reading about all these wars, but in reality, it's a bunch of dudes with spreadsheets just looking at.
Yeah, this is like a visual pirate D&D game that you can play with other people
to some extent. Yeah, but it has the same community response, which is like 80% of people being like, "Where's the rest of it?" And then 20% of people are like, "The community doesn't understand." Like, just give them a chance, and it'll in 2 years. Like, I saw some dude on the Sea of Thieves subreddit. I don't know, he might be 8, so I probably should avoid punching down too hard. But he was like, "They have a 10-year plan to support this game, so stop insulting it." And you're like, "Yeah, okay." You have a 10-year
Destiny,
plan.
right?
Let's see. Yeah,
Destiny 2 came out.
Right. So Destiny 2's plan is to rewind 5 years, redo the first 5 years of Destiny 1, and then do 5 years of new content after that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, the Xbox One is not going to be around in 10 years. So that's not even like close to controversial. It'll be like 15 years old at that point.
That's true.
That's not even like the first problem. I don't think this game's
yeah, it's like I just hope the Rare is still alive in 10 years to be able to support
Rare is not really doing a lot these days. This is their big cash cow.
Yeah, this was the big thing for them.
This was supposed to be their huge. That's why you're like, you really like. I'm not going to say it's poorly made because there's a lot about it that's really good.
It looks polished.
It's got an amazing art style. The sailing is really cool. And
the water looks incredible.
Agreed. But like straight up, you do kind of go like something went wrong in the development somewhere because it's just what you showed at like every E3 and you were like, there's more where that came from. You didn't.
We just haven't made it.
You didn't make it taller. You just made more skeletons. You're like, you saw 30 skeletons.
It's like, no, we were being literal. There's literally more skeletons where that came from. That's it.
I remember us watching the trailer for this and just being so turned off by it.
Yeah,
when we saw like the
it looked shallow.
Yeah, what we said when we saw it is unfortunately what ended up happening.
Yeah, they were
we're like, if you just sail to an island and left-click skeletons until they die and they don't offer you any challenge, like that's not that enjoyable. Right. And then turns out that's pretty much what happens.
So I just want to say, I just went and looked up to make sure that quote was true before I say this, but for them to say that they have a 10-year plan seems transparently disingenuous to get people to buy the game.
Well, I don't know if Rare said, did Rare say it?
It says, we're talking about being a 10-year title, and it's what we've done already that gives us confidence to commit to that.
Okay, yeah, that's disingenuous. Yeah. I thought maybe the dude had just taken something out of context, but that's
no,
just
that's
crazy.
The quote.
Like, come on.
That's oh, things fuck, this is not going well. Guys, we promise we have 10 years of content.
Things move really fast in this industry.
Saying you have 10 months of content is a little ambitious on us.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, and especially like, you don't really buy it when they say like, we got big plans for 6 months from now. Cause you're like, well, you had like 3 years.
You've been making
however long you've been making it. Yeah. That's when they say like, well, we got big plans for the next year. You're like, I hope so. But at the same time, I kind of doubt it because I mean, it's out and you've been working on it for years already. So.
We're not buying the beta. We're looking for the game to be done.
Yeah, have my $60 in 10 years then. How about that? That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like, I don't know. It's just not. There's no depth.
It can just not be good. And
that's the thing is everybody's saying the same thing. It's like it's a good shell. And I think it's like you can have a great 1 or 2 hours where you're like, this is amazing. And all the critics and other people that have played it are wrong. And then immediately after that, the magic wears off and you're just like, that's it. Like you're really gonna for like months you're gonna boot up Discord and be like, ahoy there, matey, like let's go do the same quest we've done 100 times. Like you're gonna get over it at some point, I think. So I don't think it's not even close to like the worst game of the year. Like it's not on that level. But I'm definitely canceling Xbox Game Pass. And like anybody who bought this at full price is crazy. We haven't even talked about the fact that like the thing that gets me is that there's just no progression. And I know people take like that as a criticism and they get very heady about it sometimes. And like, well, who needs progression? I thought video games were just about having fun. Well, yeah, but that simulation of progression sometimes is fun. Yeah. Like to get, otherwise, I don't understand why I don't just go to the island, dig up the treasure, open it myself.
Yeah, open it there and take everything.
Or take an item or something. Instead, I got this weird intermediary where I take the gold and I give it to this guy and he gives me 1/3 of what I need to buy a purple blunderbuss. And I'm like, that doesn't...
So weird.
And okay, so that's right. That's the other...
Sea of Thieves worked.
That's the other way around, right? Like that's the other thing I wanted to touch on while we're on this subject is all progression is just skins, right? Just customization for your skins.
You can change your weapon and I've seen people using other weapons, but I don't think it's like... You don't get like a legendary rocket launcher or something like that.
Can you customize your ship in any way?
You can add like a masthead, like a
mermaid on the front.
Yeah, you can add like a mermaid on the front or like a kraken tentacle and stuff like that.
Can you like make your own flag though? Like your own pirate flag?
I don't think you can make it, but you can buy multiple flags.
Okay, interesting.
Like yeah.
Because in this kind of game, like from my perspective, the thing I would want out of something like kind of open, it's because it seems like they want an open sandboxy immersion experience gameplay, but the servers are not big enough to handle like that kind of idea. I'd love to be able to just progress, have really good weapons, legendary drops, customize my ship and be like recognized like, oh shit, that's the ship that fucking Mathis flies. And I know he's been around for like 2 years and he's very powerful. Fuck, like maybe we'll work with him, maybe we'll that kind of thing.
You want a pirate MMO, but this is like games as service.
I'll even take like a MMO light, like because that seems like Sea of Thieves is MMO light-ish, like what they want to do of servers and always potentially running into players. But it seems like the idea of running into a player is core to the concept of the design, and yet running into players is rare, which is weird.
It's been rare in my experience.
Heyo.
Oh, it's rare.
Hey.
Like, that's why I laughed when I was talking in the Skype chat, and I was like, Sea of Thieves is pretty bad. And Rob was like, oh, does it have like an in-game economy or something like that? I was like, God, no. Are you crazy? It's not even like... That's so far beyond what is actually on display. You get a treasure chest, you give it to a dude, and he gives you like 1,000 gold pops up in the top right of his screen.
Boy.
He wants it to nice and
fancy and
and like it seems like the roadmap to make the game substantially more playable is really, and we compared and contrasted it on the NLSS on Wednesday. You just Vermintide it. So what you do if they're gonna fix it, and this is kind of antithetical to their existing design, but you know, you got to have stratified loot if people are going to be killing the same one enemies over and over. So there has to be some kind of hook beyond this treasure chest is going to contain between 500 and 2,000 gold. So you got to give, and then the idea that like, hey, out of this chest we got like a legendary blunderbuss, and then you guys have to fight over like who gets the blunderbuss is kind of a cool idea.
The most obvious situation you could have, all 4 players go into a cave, there's a shitload of treasure, you grab as much as you can carry as skeletons are attacking you, and you try to escape and you get one shot, and then you get to keep what you could pull. So
yeah, it's very Vermintide 2-ish in a way, but carrying like the
carry chests and don't open them.
So and weird. like make the, you don't even have to make the combat that much better, just make more enemies. But it would be better if there was a slight degree of variation in the combat, because it really, and all games, when you boil them down, most of them are like click on the right thing at the right time or press the right button at the right time, right? But Rare, in this case, has created a game with almost no abstraction. Literally, it's click on a skeleton. It makes you feel like you're 5 years old sometimes.
The best games, like Kirby's actually making me realize this too. The best games are the ones that prevent you from realizing in the moment that you're doing that.
Yeah,
I think to some extent, yeah.
Unless you go into it designed with that in mind, like a clicker hero.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
But like with Kirby, it did that too, where like I was very consciously aware of the fact that I was just mashing B a lot of the time, and that just really takes me out of the experience. So it's a similar thing here.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't want to go too hard on it. I think for a lot of people, this is going to be like, it really will be like the No Man's Sky for this year, where they're like, this game. You know what I think about is I think about kids who were like 12 when Sea of Thieves got announced, and then they're 15 or 16 now, and they're like, I pinned my hopes on this game for like my whole middle school career, and now it sucks.
And then that's when they open the door to video game industry.
Twitch.tv/Roundtable podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome.
They start a show of their own, and they're like, man, don't
Nick,
games suck.
For Nick, it was Daikatana. For me, it was Devil May Cry 2. I won't speak for anybody else, but like, everybody's got one.
What was like Fable.
Fable
had to have been
until the Last Guardian for me to finally lose my last.
I think the Fable series was my like big, like, oh man, I can't wait for this game, because you plant a tree and then 10 years later it's gonna grow, and no.
This is a good ask Roundtable.
Yeah.
Do this in a future episode. What game spoiled you and made you a cynic?
You just get every time it happens, you trust it a little bit less. So I was like, for Sea of Thieves, I was at like 0 already, because I was like, I don't know, what you've shown me does not look that cool. And then it wasn't.
Well, if you just turned 16 and you're disappointed in Sea of Thieves, I ran the math, and if you want to pay this off over the next 10 years, it only is going to cost you 1.5 cents a day, which is almost nothing. So, like, just look at it that way.
You're getting a free game.
Right. You can't afford not to buy it.
I want to give you the silver lining.
You really should, like, I think it's thank God you didn't let us worm tongue you into getting Windows 10 just for this. Even if Windows 10 is an upgrade, like, the process of upgrading is not worth experiencing Sea of Thieves by itself. So like,
that's so damning.
I mean, just like, even if it only took you like an hour to complete the upgrade, it wasn't worth it. But
I expected it would break all my audio devices, and I wasn't looking forward to that. That was really the bigger issue, was the breaking of my recording stuff, more so than the owning Windows 10 part. And I guess having to pay for Windows 10, because I don't think you can get it anymore, but that's another discussion, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, if you're gonna, I think, like, if you got nothing to do and you got 3 people that are on your side, pick up the Xbox Game Pass. We haven't even talked about the fact that out of all the launchers on Earth, the Windows Store plus the way that you have to use the Xbox app to coordinate with friends is by far the worst. Never in my life have I experienced a UI, at least on the 10 years like since the original Xbox 360 came out. I've not experienced a piece of software, I think, that is that bad.
How is it only getting worse? Howard, like, there's so many examples of it done well enough already. How are you? Never mind.
It's incredible. But like, just go, everybody get the Game Pass, like you and 3 of your friends. Prove me wrong. Play it for longer than the free trial, and say, yes, I would like to continue with this. Because
I think it's extremely likely, like you said, there's a lot of folks that are just experiencing that magic of the first couple of hours. Because I think I've certainly been guilty of that myself, where I play things that I've heard people say are not that good, and I'm like, wow, this is great. I don't know what the problem is. And then all of a sudden, there's that moment where you're like, oh, that's why they're saying that, because it's not really that good.
Yeah. And I just like, spare me as well. This is like very much more of the cynical asshole side of me. but like spare me the posts that are like, we've got to support this game because if we don't, then they're not going to be able to fulfill their plan.
It's
That's
actually
not how
good
it
that it
works.
failed.
Yeah, let it fail.
It's good that it failed because now Microsoft will think maybe Windows Store isn't the way of the future and we should maybe rethink this plan because it isn't. And we all know this, right? Can we all agree Windows Store is not the way of the future?
I was like way less cynical until I actually used it. When I used it, I was like, this is actually horrible.
It's gimped versions of games you can get elsewhere.
Wait, hold on. I just had a thought that I completely lost. Sea of Thieves is Rare, and they're not doing anything else. Like this is the only. I think I already said this too, didn't I? Right?
Yeah,
like,
Rare's dead. They're not doing anything.
They've only put out.
They were Kinect Sports for a while.
Kinect Sports, Killer Instinct,
and the second Kinect Sports,
right?
And then Rare Replay, which is just a compilation of games they made in the '90s.
A compilation of their good stuff.
Yeah.
I thought most of the team that was behind most of the classics we like weren't in the team anyway.
Yeah, a lot of the Rare people are Playtonic now.
Yeah.
And they did ukulele.
Oh, right, because they did not banjo, ukulele, right?
Yeah. Not that I'm rooting for them to fail. It's just like, it's not even the same people, so I don't feel as bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, it's just one of those things like, yeah, no, I agree. Don't let the people be like, you got to support it, otherwise we're never going to get a game like this. No, you don't. Because this will teach them a lesson to not release a game with no content in it.
Has it? Do we have any numbers? I doubt we do, but like as far as it's...
Well, yeah, I'd be curious because I wonder if those numbers also represent the 2-week trial people and the other.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so
there's
like...
so many strata.
It's going to be you know what, though? That's definitely going to inflate it for them then. They're going to be able to say like it's a success no matter what, just based on the fact that people are going to be able to get it for that cheap price or maybe even for free, really.
Yeah. Push the success with all the free passes and then push the 10-year plan and then do another 6 years of marketing.
I don't think they can, like, with how much they've committed to it, they've got to at least go for like a year.
Yeah.
Dude, the thing, like,
fall off the face of the earth.
Very rarely does this happen, but you look at this game, at least I do, and I kind of go, you should have just made it free with microtransactions. Because, like, it's not, most of the time, I'm like, $60, $80, you know, if it gives you 10, 15, 20 hours of entertainment, you're there, kind of.
Yeah.
In my world, at least. But it's not even close. Like, it's laughable to consider that this is going to be like a $60 game. And I even, like, when you guys are talking about Kirby and you're like, well, if it was like half the price, I'd buy it. I'm like, I don't know, if it's like bad, it's bad to some extent. And I think Sea of Thieves is not bad, but it's just not even close to even like scratching the surface of justifying the price tag. Like,
well, there's no content.
That's the thing. It's just like, you could not fathom.
It's the opposite.
Playing this for 100 hours.
Sea of Thieves has some gameplay mechanics, but no content, and Kirby has content, but you don't need any gameplay mechanics. The game plays itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there we go. Sea of Thieves, $60, Microsoft exclusive. You can get it either on the Windows Store or on the Xbox One.
I'm sure we'll be tracking it for years to come on Roundtable, right?
Oh, you betcha.
At least the first year. I mean, fucking God.
Well, if this is our new No Man's Sky, you know what conversation conversation topic we've got locked in for the next 6 shows, right? How much is Sea of Thieves shit in the bed this week?
I hope. I mean, I know like No Man's Sky, for instance, is still adding things to the game, but I want to do it 2 years later. I hope Sea of Thieves does make an amazing game a year down, not 10 years, maybe 6 months to a year from now, and we can revisit and be like, this game is good now, kind of like The Division is going for Ubisoft, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I actually, like, at least let them make, like, a $10 racing game using the boat mechanics. And dare I say it, people are throwing the joke around. I don't think they should turn Sea of Thieves into a battle royale. Let me just say that right off the bat. That's
some royale.
A boat royale, nice.
That's some like Black Mirror shit. Everything that fails is now a battle royale.
Well, Dead by Daylight's getting a battle royale.
I heard,
really?
Wait, not Dead by Daylight, Dying Light.
Dying Light, sorry, Dying Light.
Okay. Oh, dude, Dying Light.
That has great.
That makes more sense.
Dying Light's cool.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. That's cool.
But
it was
like,
Dead by Daylight, I was gonna be like, what the fuck?
I would have been. I don't know how they would have done it. Anyway, continue, Ryan.
Just make a mode that's like galleon versus galleon PvP, like the way you queue for Call of Duty or something like that.
That's Guns of
Four
Icarus.
people queue up, 4 people queue up. You fight on like a little area with your ships, and when one ship sinks, you know, maybe it's best of 3 or something like that. Already, I would be like, I will reinstall Sea of Thieves for that. I don't know if I'm gonna buy it because I'm on the games as a service model right now with the free trial. So if you do it in like the next 8 days, please. But like, just make like you got the sandbox you've made is really good, and then just give people something to do for like 3 months, and behind the scenes be like, holy shit, we gotta like save the real game now.
Sorry, I guess I'm cracking up at the Dead by Daylight Battle Royale game. I'm just imagining
I kind of want it now.
Running around trying to fix generators, and a dude with a chainsaw is just like, cut.
But what you're asking for, Ryan, is what Guns of Icarus is.
Yeah, but you know, like, here's the thing.
You just like the idea of being in water more?
No, as much as I've bashed Sea of Thieves, it's like the boat combat and the boat mechanics are way better than they are in something like Holdfast. Like in Holdfast, there's the novelty of being on a ship and you can like load a cannon and shoot it. It's so much better in Sea of Thieves. Like they knocked that part out of the park. And that's kind of how I felt when I played Guns of Icarus Alliance, whatever the second one was.
That's the NPC version, the single player thing.
I don't know. I played it 4v4 at an event, and I was just kind of like, I don't really get like a sense of like visceralness out of this. I just kind of feel like I'm like a machine completing a task.
Gotcha.
And then like in Sea of Thieves, there's like a real sense of frenetic, like, oh my god, this is crazy. Like you know, are there holes on the ship? Somebody runs down and like checks it out. It's a lot. I really like games that have like asymmetrical roles for sure, and I think Sea of Thieves does a good job with that. But like, that's the strength, is the boat. The boat and the water are really good, and everything else, the way they tried to like package that in a loop that was like, you know, here's an excuse to sail, is not great.
Top 3 water looks top 3 to me.
It looks good.
Beautiful
really
water.
great, yeah. The way it flows around is really satisfying. Just for my own fun here, I want you guys to take a guess at what you think it was the peak
Rocket League
concurrent players yesterday. What? I want you guys to guess what you think was the amount of peak concurrent players yesterday for No Man's Sky.
Oh God, under 1,000.
Yeah, I'd say like 85.
220.
Yeah,
567.
Okay.
Oh well, geez.
Yeah, it's okay, but yeah, if that's the player base they're going to be looking at like a year or two down the line for Sea of Thieves, I'm really curious what their 10-year plan's going to.
Sea of Thieves actually has multiplayer though.
Right. Yeah. So that
No Man's Sky just told people they had it.
Right.
Mhm.
Also true.
they
Also
just
true.
lie.
No,
It does have many planets, though. How many planets does Sea of Thieves have?
they
true.
simulate
Oh my
down to
God.
the molecule, guys. Come on.
Mhm. We haven't had a good old-fashioned No Man's Sky ribbing in a while. That felt nice. All right, Sea of Thieves. It's $60 available now, Microsoft exclusive. There you go. I forgot to talk about this one real quick, so I'm just going to mention it. Kinese, which is a free VR game that I tried out this week. Yes, it is really promising. I feel it's one of the better concepts that I've come across in VR recently. I'm assuming none of you guys checked it out, right?
No.
Okay. So I don't want to give too much of it away. I mostly just want to recommend this as somebody who is really hopeful for the VR space still. I think this is a really cool and unique concept, and it's free, so it's worth checking out, absolutely. But the general idea is you have this little green cube, and you move it around using your controller, kind of like you hold the trigger, and then you can push it to give it some momentum, and then you can just let it go, and it will sort of freely move around. So you start with that, and there's like this nice meditative, relaxing music playing in the background as well. So just with that alone, I was kind of just messing around with it and thinking, oh, okay, yeah, this is sort of just a nice meditative VR experience. And those are kind of cool. Every now and then I like to just zone out a little bit and play around with stuff. But then it started to open up for me. I realized that, I can kind of interact with things around me in the room. And then that started to open more doors. And before I knew it, I was like, my mind was being blown because of the things that I could do in this game. Not to mention the fact that I spent like an hour within this space, and there are 6 achievements in the game. I didn't get a single one. and they're all like secrets that you can do within the game itself. So there's even more to it that I didn't realize and I have no idea what it could be, because it's really crazy to me. So I highly recommend this. Kinese is how you spell the game, and it is like really encouraging to me. Like this is the sort of stuff. Again, I don't want to say too much about it because I want people to experience it for themselves, but this is the sort of stuff that really makes me think these are the people that are going to show us what we can do with VR. There are people out there that have these cool ideas that we haven't seen yet, that have these unique concepts that we haven't been able to do in any other game because we haven't had the technology like this. But this is like such a cool thing that can be built off in so many different ways that it just makes me really excited for what they can do. And not even necessarily just this developer, but other developers may be seeing this and thinking like, oh, I can implement this into my game and make it work this way. So it's really exciting, encouraging for me. And I want to recommend people check it out. It's Kinese. Free game. You can also give them a tip if you want. There's just
it's free. That's nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, my VR worked. I would try it.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. Fair. That's just my little recommendation for VR as well. And that'll bring us into just a little wrap up what we've been playing this week. Mathis, what have you been up to this week, man?
I'm playing 2 games. One, and the most important one, is Don't Get Robbed. So I got a fun story. Okay. I was, you know how I've every once in a while my neighbor will knock on my window and I'll go let him in, and it like scares me every single time.
Yep.
Last night I was doing a D&D stream and I heard the typical on my window, and I was like, oh, I think my neighbor's here, and I let him in. Went outside, nobody outside, nobody in the area. And I got an email this morning from my apartment complex that says, hey, there's been a rash of break-ins on first floor apartments. Like, can you make sure you have your lights on, and we'll have cops patrolling the area for the next few nights, blah, blah, blah. So that scared the shit out of me when I got that email during the podcast. Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. So I'm a little nervous that the break-in guy last night, seeing if I was like around.
Have you checked to make sure he's not in your house right now?
Ooh. He's been in here for a long time.
Have you looked under the desk?
What's funny is that when you said "Don't Get Robbed," I was like, "It sounds like the kind of game Mathis would play."
It's like
I was thinking, like, what is this?
It's probably some like $3 Steam trash
Unity
for streamers or something.
All I got is an article from Travel Insurance Review of how not to get robbed on a street in a foreign country.
Oh my god. In all reality, though, as far as video games are concerned, right now the only thing I've really been playing is still Kingdom Come Deliverance. Still playing through that. I'm like 40 hours in. I basically broke the game yesterday.
I want you to retell that in
sure. So I was doing a side quest, and the side quest basically boils down to the town executioner is really mad because they have a guest executioner coming to do all these like high profile executions, and I'm like, all right, sweet, I'll help you.
I didn't even realize how funny of a concept that is in general. They've got a special guest executioner on the way to do ridiculous. Some high-profile executions.
Does he have an opening act that does like a bunch of?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like back in the medieval era,
that was the entertainment.
That was the entertainment, and they drive that home, and the whole game is like
that's hilarious.
Public executions is like fun time party land for these people. Yeah. So he's like, all right, can you go and go sabotage his executions so that like when he tries to behead this guy, his sword is dull and he has to take a couple swipes. That'll be embarrassing for him. Then you're gonna replace his rope with a really bad rope so that when they try and hang him, the rope will snap and he'll live. And then the audience will see that as an act of God and he'll have to be set free. And then the third one is he's such a mass murderer, they're going to torture him and keep him alive for a really long time. So why don't you poison the tongs that they're going to use to open his flesh with so that he dies really quickly and he doesn't get to be tortured. So I'm like, oh, that sounds really fun. All right, let's go do that.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah,
great
that
time.
Sounds like a hoot.
Can we just spare a thought for the guy whose sword got swapped out to be dull as a punishment to the executioner?
It was good times. So I did all of that except for the poison one. The poison one, I needed like one little thing to go make the poison in the apothecary, and I couldn't find it. So I was like, you know what I'll do? I'll sneak into the apothecary house at night and I'll steal it, and then I'll go make the potion. Problem is, the stealth in this game is about as buggy as the rest of the game, and the game is being held up by rickety boards that anytime you break the simulation or go off the rails, the game borderline crashes. So I stole it, but what I did is I went into the house and I went up to the apothecary guy. Everybody was asleep, and I just knocked him out. While he was asleep, I put my hand over his mouth and over his throat, and I just put him out. Problem is, every single other person in the house woke up to that for no reason. And they all start freaking out. So I start doing the crouch dance, because in this game, as long as you're crouching and you're behind somebody, whether they know you're there or not, you can do a press F and knock them out while they're standing up. So I'm like trying to get behind them all, up and down crouching, just trying to get behind them and knock them all out.
The visual of that.
It's ridiculous looking in the process. So I'm doing that, and I knock somebody else out, and the wife runs out and gets the guards. The guards come back, and they're yelling at me, so I pay them $300. So I'm like, all right, well, that's done. I'll sneak downstairs now that the other people are knocked out. I won't have to worry about it. I go downstairs to steal, but because the guards came and took care of everything, all the people I knocked out woke up. So now they see me stealing, and they freak out, and they run out and get the guards. Guards come back. Don't do that again. Here's $300 more.
Naughty Mathis.
Guards go away. Then I go outside, and I'm like, all right, I'll go in the back door where nobody is, and I'll just take the one thing I need, and it'll be over. Go in the back door. They're so mad that they automatically know I'm in the house. They freak out. One guy runs out. The guards come back. I'm like, bad person. And I'm like, here's $300. Go away. That goes back and forth for at least 5 or 6 times.
That works in real life, by the way, if you guys were curious. If the cops ever show up, you just say, here's $300.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's fine. Eventually, I just gave up, and I was like, I'll come back tomorrow, and I'll just buy it legitimately, whatever. I'll wait 2 days so they're not mad. The problem is, that apothecary store is so mad at me now that if I even get anywhere near it and the door is open and the shop guard even sees me outside, he pulls his sword and chases me outside and starts trying to kill me. And the guards see him attacking me. My weapon is not drawn, and they join in, and they're trying to kill me with him. So I'm like trying to surrender to the guards, but the guards are like, "We're not taking your surrender." Blah, blah, blah.
Shit.
So I have to leave. I run. So eventually I get the poison made. And because I find what I need out in the wild, and I make the poison, I poison the tongs, and I'm like, all right, now the next part of the quest is go to the execution show and watch him fail. I go to the execution show. The executioner hates me. He knows of my crimes. He despises me. He comes off of the executioner's stage, pulls his sword, and is like, bastard! And he comes at me. And then the 2 guards that were there pull their swords, and they were like, get him! And they're all chasing me down. So I'm trying to surrender. The guards aren't letting me. And I was like, fuck it. I pull my sword, and they're all really weak compared to me because I'm 40 hours in. I'm well trained. I'm fighting them off. I kill the executioner, and I stab him on the ground, and it's quest complete. Go see Herman the executioner. So I'm like, fine, that counts. I wasted all my time just poisoning all their shit. I kill him. I run off. I go to the Herman the executioner the next day, and I'm like, hey, it's all taken care of. He's dead. Don't worry about it.
I did it.
Yeah, it is fine. I'm like, he's dead. And then the executioner looks at me. He's like, how dare you take another life to complete the thing? I told you to sabotage it, blah, 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 blah. He yells at me. He's like, I never want to see or talk to you ever again. And he kicks me off his land. And then all the quests is failed, failed, failed. And I'm like, fuck you stupid fucking game. Because at one point, too, the guards are trying to talk to me, and the game is stuck in the loading screen, desperately trying to figure out, and this will go up today for those who watch the series, there's 2 or 3 times where I'm in the middle of the fight, and the guards want to talk to me because I'm trying to surrender, but they also keep saying they don't want me to surrender. So the game goes to the black loading screen like it's about to go into a conversation, and then it'll kick me back out into the fight, and then it'll go back into the loading screen, and then kick me back out into the fight until eventually I'm just swinging my sword at them, and they don't want to talk anymore. The game was just breaking in front of my eyes because it was you went way too off the rails. I don't know what you want to. You killed the executioner. What are you gonna do?
The part where you were trying to poison everyone and they were waking up, could you edit that to the Benny Hill music playing in the back?
Oh god, that'd be so good. I should do that.
Pretty funny, actually.
Oh my god, it was just ridiculous. It was so stupid. It all boils down to the stealth system in the game is terrible because they all wake up to me knocking somebody out.
I was telling you, it really reminds me of Skyrim because I can completely imagine them. Because I have that visual in my head of all of those robot NPCs in the exact simultaneous moment, all getting out of bed, being like, "What is happening?"
Just, standing straight up and walking around.
And the thing is, that's the only time I've ever had the game freak out, because that's the only time I've really ever gone off script and been like, I'm just gonna try and force my way through this quest because I'm fucking sick of it being annoying. And then one part I did forget to mention is the shop guard. After one of the times he was chasing me, the last time he was chasing me, the guard stopped chasing me for no reason at some point and walked away. And they're like, okay, it's fine. But the shop guard kept chasing me. So I just brought him into the barn and I just fucking fought him and killed him. So he's dead. He doesn't exist anymore. He's gone. But
and I know how you solve your problems now. Yeah, there's a clear pattern here.
no, for the chat saying stealth is fine, the stealth is notably and publicly bugged. Just because it works on your game doesn't mean it's not broken on a ton of other people's games.
Thieves is good. How dare you?
The thing is, the game is still very, very buggy. I still have 3 or 4 quests that are soft locked on me, and I just can't complete them. There's the point where they have to sit in my quest log, and I can never finish them because I can't do it. The game is just broken. Yeah, it's fine. Sucks. The story's still good. The main story's fine. And luckily, like I heard somebody tell me that their game, when they were trying to do something and their stealth failed, their town actually bugged out on them, and their town had them locked at -99 reputation for a failed stealth. And then they can never go back into that town because the guards will just harass them. Luckily, that hasn't happened. It seems like the apothecary shop hates me. That might be fair at this point. I did murder their shop guard. But the town doesn't hate me, which is good.
That might be fair. It might be justified.
Yeah, the town doesn't hate me, which is good, and I can still progress through the main story. It's just that one side quest, like, showed the rickety foundations in which Kingdom Come Deliverance is built upon.
Yeah.
So that's been my week.
Ryan, what have you been up to this week?
So I played like 3 hours of Sea of Thieves, and I played about an hour and a half of this game called Synthetic, which is a Nuclear Throne-esque twin-stick shooter roguelite, but it's more cyberpunky and has some chunky kind of mechanics like, you know, before you reload, you have to eject a magazine, and whatever was left in the magazine, you have like a very limited ammo supply, so it gets actually lost forever. And then it has like an active reload, and then it has synergistic items that come up on top of that, like, you know, you can get an item where, like, if you hit the active reload, whenever you hit it, it gives you like a rate of fire buff or something like that. So you do get kind of like a roguelite trapping on top of it as well. It's nice, but Nick and I were unfortunately finding that the online just doesn't work. So like most roguelites, it's doomed to single player play forever, apparently. But Synthetic's pretty cool. And I played like 3 hours of A Way Out last night. And I think that game is pretty good.
I hear it's super short. I hear it's like 4 or 5 hours long.
See, we played like, here's the thing, and I don't want to spoil it too much.
No, don't, because I'm still playing it with you tomorrow.
I'm gonna spoil a little. Damn. I said too much. It's not really.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
It's not really a prison escape game.
No, it's a story game, right?
Yeah, it's like, it's a little bit like a 2-player Heavy Rain, to be honest with you.
Oh god.
But like, not so much investigation, but it's kind of like one of those adventure games. And then occasionally, like quite frequently, you actually have to like work together and solve a puzzle together. But the puzzles are usually like, this thing's slightly too high, boost me, or like we need 2 people to like come up at the same time. But it's really like dueling QTEs most of the time on the left side and the right side of the screen.
Okay.
So like it's really interesting. It seems pretty linear, but there's, I'm not gonna say branching paths, but there's like different decisions you can make that, like Kate and I came to at one point and it was like, hey, should we like cross this bridge where there's a heavy police presence, or should we go under the bridge? When under the bridge is going to be like more dangerous because we could fall or something like that, but over the bridge we're probably going to have to like, you know, murder some cops or something like that. So, or silently take down some cops. So like the writing and what happens in the game is a little silly sometimes. Like, I don't think it's nearly as ridiculous as Heavy Rain, which is just a bizarro world.
God, but, yeah, I want to talk about that, actually.
Dude, I'm having a great time playing Heavy Rain. It's so good.
It's so bad.
Well, yeah, kind of. It's so, like, it thinks it's so important.
Not to change subjects. Actually, finish A Way Out. We'll get to Heavy Rain.
So, like, I don't know. A Way Out seems cool. It doesn't seem like a 10 out of 10. It doesn't look like it's gonna affect people on the same degree that like Brothers did. But the fact that it just like works online in co-op
and only
fairly
one person
seamlessly.
Has to own it.
Oh, that's a very good point. Yeah, me and Kate both bought it.
Oh yeah, no, only one person has to own it, and then that person can play with as many friends as he wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's neat. Like, it seems like the kind of thing that you would be cool playing through maybe twice, and then, you know, I would love to see somebody carry. Like, I'd love to see Dan play all of A Way Out with a stranger.
Yes,
like just someone he randomly matches up with and have to like convince him to do things his way. But yeah, I think A Way Out is cool. It is $40, but I guess technically that's 2 copies. So
yeah. True.
Or
infinite
unlimited
copies,
copies if you want to play it over and over again. But
true.
Yeah.
As far as one of my least favorite David Cage games, Heavy Rain, is concerned.
Oh yeah.
How do you like French New Yorker Norman Jayden?
Norman Jayden?
Norman Jayden?
Yeah, it's just there's so much about that game that is crazy. I mean, you give it a little bit of a pass because it's like 10 years old, but yeah, the voice acting, you're like, these people don't talk like Americans. They talk like they're European, which is fine. But like,
but it takes place in New York.
I know, yeah, or
around that area,
something like that. But like, first off, Kat, you're being very annoying right now. It's just like bizarre, the interactions that happen in Heavy Rain. I think that's what's gotten me, is like people talk to each other the way that no humans on Earth have ever talked to anybody else, and it's rife for humor. I am having a great time. Like I was maybe I'll play Beyond Two Souls.
Oh god, that's even worse.
I did 3 hours of Heavy Rain, and I was like, I'm definitely gonna play Beyond Two Souls.
Yeah, Beyond Two Souls is fucking atrocious.
It's just, the game is so bizarre. It feels like it's like a Tommy Wiseau game, basically. It's like nobody, they gave the dude a lot of money, and nobody told him that it's like, hey, it's
and they keep giving him money.
Norman Jayden's got these fucking Google glasses that like they do things that are crazy. Like he's a cop, and he's supposed to be like a super cop, and then he has to climb a little ridge, and you got to nail like 80 QuickTime events. Or like one scene, which is amazing, is you have to set plates out, and you have to do it like slowly.
It's a QuickTime event, right?
Yeah. It's a QuickTime event, and you have to do it slowly. Your wife goes, "Be careful with those plates." It's so exposition heavy. They go, "Careful with those plates. My mother bought those for us for our 3rd anniversary," or something ridiculous like that. And he goes, what he should say is, "Are you fucking crazy? I'm a 40-year-old man. I know how to set a ceramic disc onto a table. I've been doing it for my whole life." And he goes, "Yeah, I'll be careful." And then he goes like, and if you mess it up, he sets it slightly askew, and she's got super hearing or something. She goes, "I told you to be careful with those plates." And he goes, "Yeah."
But it doesn't actually affect anything, right? It just yells at you.
But it's just the crazy sort of thing where it's like a tutorial for the game, for the mechanics, but narratively, which is 99% of the game is the narrative, it makes things feel like they're happening in a crazy universe.
Wait until
things don't make any sense.
When you beat the game and you realize how many plot holes are in this fucking thing, you're gonna want to rip your hair. Do you have any? Where are you in the game? Out of curiosity. Anybody die for you, or have you saved everybody's life?
Spoilers.
No, it's not spoilers. If you mess it might all of his games. If you fuck up, you can lose characters. If you don't,
he's
you stay alive.
So I just played as like the American. Well, I guess they're all American. I played as the American Private Eye, and I saved a young lady from killing herself in a bathtub.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea who do you think the killer is? Out of curiosity.
No, I don't care. Honestly, I'm just riding the bus.
That's the way to play it. Honestly,
it does such weird shit, dude. Like, it was, the dude's robbing the store, and he's got a gun, and I failed a QuickTime event to not knock over like a bottle and stealthily take him out. So I have to get in a conversation with him. I failed the conversation. Dude's got a gun pointed at me. I'm like, I'm getting shot in the chest. Yeah. He just turns and points the gun at the store clerk, and I just rush him and take him out. And I'm like, of course, there's no consequence, at least in this situation. There's no consequence at all to failing what's a super tense moment of dialogue, because the guy just goes, "Okay, I'll leave you alone, I guess, and don't hit me," and then you hit him. And then the clerk is like, "You've saved my life, sir. Here's the evidence I've been withholding from the police." And I'm not doing like, this is not what people.
Do you like the part where Norman Jayden goes through his VR withdrawals and you have to like press a million buttons?
I'm not there yet.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
God, it's so stupid. The game is just so. I hate David Cage. I hate him, and I play all of his fucking games every single time.
I love it, dude. I'm having a great time.
So bad.
Nick, what have you been up to?
I have been playing. I touched a little bit of synthetic as well, and thought it was pretty cool. Kind of hardcore actually, but in a good way. You headshot robots all the time and get like laser rifles, and I like laser rifles.
Oh yeah.
I just played like 10 minutes of that. It wasn't a big deal. Played a lot more Assassin's Creed Origins. I think I'm like halfway done with the game now. I've done all of the Eagle Towers. I've done all the stone circles. I'm like,
still digging it?
Yeah, I'm actually still having a good time. I've explored mostly all the tombs, and I got a really weird thing that happened that I guess is probably related to the Animus, and I won't say what it is, but like there's stuff in the desert that doesn't belong there, and that's kind of cool. I'm actually so into it that I might buy the second DLC, not the first one, but the second one, because it lets you go fight like Anubis gods and shit in the desert.
Oh, that's cool.
Kind of like the idea of getting that.
Yeah. Neat. Well, good.
Yeah, it's really fun. And I actually am invested in Assassin's Creed game. I never thought I'd be able to say that again.
I'm surprised.
I'm also playing their Billions. I got about 8 hours into that in the last couple days, and I'm not much of an RTS guy, but I got to say this game hooked me pretty easily. It's got this really punishing hardcore design where if you don't do it exactly right, it kills you every time. One zombie gets in the camp. I don't know, maybe, but I didn't play it the other day. But you would think it's really frustrating that you die immediately, but actually it kind of encourages you to just play better over and over. So I've got like 7 rounds or so, and each time I played another round, I would last a little longer. And I now got to the point where I was 3 hours deep on a colony. And then, the inevitable happens again. But I didn't even get that mad. It was just like, okay, well, I just have to take a break, because that's a long amount of time to devote to something that is just gone. You can't like save scum and back it up. It's like you can either play the game or quit. So there's no redoing that. Once it's gone, it's gone. And you roll with the punches, you do it again. And I'm playing on the second easiest difficulty level.
Man, that's fairly promising that you would be so encouraged despite a failure like that with that much.
Because it feels like right away you can get back to the core element of the game, which is making these important decisions about the shape of the land around you and how you're gonna like clear out the zombies there. I never even explained what the point of it was, but I think you probably all know. It's a colony defense game in RTS, kind of like a StarCraft thing where you set up a base and there's like a ton of zombies, and then they come in waves every so often at your town. So if one gets in, they get in your house, they eat the people in the house, then like 5 more zombies come out of the house, and then your whole colony is screwed. So you can theoretically save it when one gets in, but you probably won't. It's very unlikely. So that's it. It's basically just a really hardcore RTS with that in mind, and a pretty good art style, really good music as well. And it's still in early access and feeling quite polished. It doesn't even have a campaign right now. It's just a survival mode with, I think, 4 maps and a bunch of difficulty modes. Despite all of those what would be shortcomings, I still think it's quite fun right as it is right now. I don't know if I'll ever beat it, but I don't mind trying a few more times. I learned a lot. I know what I'm doing now. What's up?
Do you know if they got an ETA for when they're coming out of early access?
I don't know that, actually. I probably should know that, but I don't.
All right, no worries. Cool. Anything else you've been playing this week?
I played Hold Fast for the first time, Nations at War. I didn't like it very much, to be honest.
That does not shock me too much.
It's just kind of like a just casual shooter where you play as people from like the Revolutionary War, shoot at each other.
You can drum.
Yeah. I don't know. There's not all that much to say about that, though. It's really, I don't even, when I say I don't like it, I don't mean like it's bad. I just don't really want to play it very much. That's all.
That's the thing, is like, it's a good, Hold Fast is fine. It's like, I don't even know if it's fun to play, but I've played like 7 hours of it. It's very easy to play. Like when you play it, you're just like, I got a kill, I died. I got a kill, I died. And like,
doesn't really have a lot of weight to it.
It feels like it's from like 2004.
Yeah,
like, I'll just boot up Hold Fast and I'll get 60 kills and die 70 times.
Like an old Source mod.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I've been playing a little bit of the Civilization 6 expansion, Rise and Fall. That's the one this one's called. It is pretty decent. I liked Civ 6 at the base level quite a bit, enough to play through it a few times. I didn't put as much time into it as I put into Civ 5, but I've recently been playing again because I've been playing with my family, so we've had an excuse to get back to it. And the DLC adds this new loyalty system into the mix. So if you're familiar with Civ 6, you know that there's already systems in place for like, you've got the religious influence that is its entire thing of sending out apostles and missionaries to try to win over religious influence of other city-states and nations. But then they also now have this system for loyalty. So you can build buildings that will give you loyalty in your cities. The citizens will become more loyal to you, and if you don't maintain that loyalty, then they will begin to revolt and cause other issues that you have to address. So it's just adding another thing into the mix of like a another factor you have to balance in your city management. And to assist you a little bit in that as well, they have this new governor system. So with certain technologies that you research, you're able to appoint a governor. There's 6 different governors. I don't know if they're ever going to add more, but at the moment there's 6 different ones that all have different specifications. So there's like a military governor, a religious governor, things like that. And they add just another layer of complexity to city management that all sort of works together fairly well. And I think that's like the sign of a good civilization expansion, is they make it seem as though it was always part of the game. You know, like it seems like that could have been a mechanic from the start, and you don't feel like it's too out of place. So I think they've done a good job with that with this expansion. They also added the new ages mechanic. So every age that you progress, like the ancient era or the classical era, the modern era, stuff like that, every time you progress through one of those, you'll either trigger a dark age or a golden age, depending on how well you did in the previous era. So there's a little bit more going on every turn to just put you more in the or to keep you more engaged, I guess. And again, that's another one of the things that most Civ 6 expansions worry about, I think, is like trying to keep your focus on what's happening, and as opposed to just sort of going through the motions, like what will tend to happen for me anyway with Civ games. So yeah, I've been enjoying that quite a bit. It's good. And that's the gist of what I've been doing this week. I was really encouraged by Kinese. Again, honestly, I want to recommend people check that out. It is pretty awesome. And then Rocket League, you know, playing a little bit of that too. Gotta get that in the mix. I crossed the 1,000-hour threshold though. I finally did it this week. It's
is Gratz the right word for that?
I don't know. It's like okay, Bear. And that's going to do it for this episode of Roundtable Live. Thank you very much for tuning in, folks. We really appreciate your support here on twitch.tv/Roundtable Podcast, where you can find this show every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And of course, the VOD is uploaded over on youtube.com/BaerTaffy the next day. If you'd like to get immediate access to the VOD of the show, you can subscribe here on twitch.tv/Roundtable Podcast, whether that be with the Twitch Prime subscription or just subscribing with your normal money. We would really appreciate that. And if you'd like to support the show a different way, you can go over to patreon.com/roundtable, which is where patrons have been supporting us on the show for nearly 3 years now. Pretty ridiculous. Thank you very much to those of you who are supporting at that $20 tier and above, which include
Julian Applesgar, Scotty119, Ricky Grist, Mediocrities. I've been pledging $20 but forgot to update my reward tier. What? And then it stopped. SJ Mapler, Jin when it hasn't been your day, Falco, Simmerfett, Cowboy Chemist, Eric Schooley, Stephen Aoki, that's not my real name and not an ironic shout out, James Peed, Peter Sunson, Ellis Spice, John Kalchik, Otomas Games BR, Jakar Sampson with the dance number, Cole Noir, Sahoa, Talks to Wall, Colby Klein, Green Light, and Oren Saltzman. And then our Twitch subscribers for the day, Protein Pankaka, TB the British, FDBX Frodo, Hydra FX, and Meta Knight 19.
Hell yeah. Thank you all very, very much for supporting the show. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.